pulled him in. Nice.
Yeah, they pulled in a lot of esports.
We're talking about right. Also,
Okay,
are we going to
the pole sitter not being there, he's rejoined the session. We'll have to go as if this is the real thing here with the lights coming on at the Hungaro ring. And, well, I think that tells us it's probably not going to be the real thing because Vallu absolutely rockets off the line well ahead of everyone else with the lights going out. So I think the finish driver maybe making a bit of a point there, but it's going to be 3 wide behind him into turn 1 here with Calcifer on the inside, Dougie Falcons in the middle, and AJ hung out to dry on the exit there, but does hold on to the car nicely and holds on to P4 for now as well. It's his teammate close behind. A2 UK has had a good start, challenging Lappy for 6th position and looking to try and take it away. And in fact, he should be able to do so through turn 4. No, actually, he's going to be behind into turn 4 and with the outside line as well, very hard. So he's just going to stick down in 6th for now. Omar B over his rear wing as well, with Max down in 8th.
Yeah, and A2 UK within a second of Luppy. AJ just fell to over a second behind Dougie Falcons, and Omar B getting closer to A2. He'll have a little think around the outside, but he's not going to be able to pull that one off this early in the race.
Yeah, and A2 still within DRS range at the moment, but he's under a lot of pressure. And a lovely move up the inside of turn 2 there. Really well judged from Omar B. Up ahead. But of course, slightly artificial gap given the difference in starting. But right now we see Maverick trying to make amends for a poor opening lap of the race as he makes his way past Simons into turn 1, 9 or thereabouts. These guys are in the high 118s right now. Luppy going a little bit faster than Omar, although not for long, as Omar is going to be making the move up the inside. And there we go from the Mercedes driver, getting the move done on the racing point, the Dutch. Yeah, no, so you are completely right about that one. So a little bit of teething errors with some of the graphics, but I hope you're appreciating what we're doing here. These graphics bring them through. I love to see them. You can see once again Omar B fastest last time around and fastest on track as he's going to be able to make the move on AJ into turn 1 here. Diving it up the inside, AJ going for the switchback on the exit, but I don't think he'll have the traction. Where are they? Here they come. The Mercedes is ahead, and Omar B continues his unstoppable march up the order right now.
Yeah. Let's see then on to the start-finish straight as they start lap at 12 of 35. FXR man's got the DRS. And he'll just sweep to the inside and sweep past Racebug and up into P10.
on Omar B, who should respond by coming into the pits in this lap, and indeed does so. The Mercedes driver heading into the pits right now.
AJ.
Simons has been holding up AJ, but not for much longer as AJ makes the move there into turn 12. Nicely done from him. Luppy needs to get past as quick as possible as well. You can see some impatience from the Racing Point there as he thought about a move into turn 13. Wasn't able to do it, and Simons very obligingly gets out of the way completely by heading into the pits.
Be within striking range as FXR man will look for the move on Max.
Here he comes then. It should be easy enough. He has the inside line into turn 1. Max is alongside in the braking zone, so he can battle back if he'd like to, but I don't think he's able to, as FXR man makes the move stick, and up into 9th he goes.
P2 and P11, and Luppy, I think this might be the chance for him. He's got no ERS, and he just can't quite close enough. As AJ very early turning, and that's going to compromise him on exit, and Luppy just sweeps past.
So you can see Iceman is so much faster than him right now. You can see in every corner, he's looking for a different line, just doing anything to try and do something different to the British driver up ahead. And he almost taps the back of him there in turn 2 as well. Maybe did tap the back of him. Ghosting a little bit there, the Haas car. Can't get too impatient there, Iceman. He
should be able to find that opportunity within 3/10, but with these hard tires, they don't really drop off, and Iceman's getting very close. Maybe you could have a little look down into the chicane. Has a think about it, but he has to just slot in behind once again.
Yeah, and once again, there's someone struggling on the exit of 7. You can see around the outside of 8 was the attempt there from Iceman. He runs a little bit wide through 9. Through 10 we go. That's flat out no problem. And then into 11, and no, there it is. It was almost inevitable to happen. They were all pushing so hard, and Maverick is the one who loses out. He's the one who buckled under the pressure. Into the wall he went. 0% of that front wing remaining on that car, and in fact, Max picks up a second front wing for himself back there in the Renault. But we are onto the penultimate lap of the race. They are almost onto their penultimate lap, so there's not going to be so much more time. But right now, here comes Iceman thinking about a move in turn 4 of all places. But that's always going to be tough. One of his best opportunities right now. Cheggy Bread losing out further down the order on 28-lap-old hard tyres. Decent effort from Cheggy on those hards to make those last this long. But it's only going to be good enough for 13th on track at least. We'll see what happens with the penalties once we get to the end. But speaking of the end, Vallu has crossed the line and won the race. The Finnish driver, after a dubious start to the race, comfortably held the pace over Calcifer. Had 6 seconds of penalties in the end, so it was pretty close between them, but still had just enough margin. Dougie Falcons will come across the line in 3rd, and will be comfortably ahead of Omar B, because Dougie did not have any penalties of his own. Luppy comes across the line 5th, but loses out to AJ, who goes up to 5th. Where will A2 and Iceman slot in as they come across the line? They're just going to be 7th and 8th. The extra penalties over and above for them as well. So 7th and 8th, all they can muster in the end. Max, 13 seconds down on this battle, but 14.5 seconds ahead of Racebug. He'll solidly come through for a good points haul in 9th. Racebug will be the next across the line. Meanwhile,
Maverick and Kenneth are side by side.
Maverick and Kenna's battling, and that is Maverick around the outside of turn 13. Not a traditional overtaking opportunity, but when you have a tyre delta as enormous as this one, everywhere is the overtaking opportunity. And Maverick gives a little weave across the line after a nice recovery to reclaim 11th.
Good evening and welcome to FXR Round 6 as we make our way into Italy for Monza Round 6 of the Premier X Championship. And as always, I am Yousuf Milky Cereal, bin-Suhayl, joined by Jacob Aladar Hancox. Jacob, last time we were here, we had that really nice long winter break, and now it feels like we're back into things that thick and fast and, well, at the tempo of speed.
Yeah, speaking of thick and fast, at least in terms of fast, there's not really any faster that you can get. Thick, I mean, the track's quite wide in some places. Parabolica, you can go several cars wide through there if you really wanted to. So maybe you could describe it as the thickest and fastest track on the calendar.
The thickest and fastest. I'll go with fastest. I'll steer clear of thickest for now. But yeah, Monza absolutely fantastic. I've been doing some practice with some of the other drivers. You can run side by side pretty much everywhere as long as you leave room for each other. But then again, in the heat of the moment when you're battling, leaving room can sometimes become a bit questionable. We saw that in some of the races over the course of this week. Accidents across the board, and I mean, we're going to be hoping for the PX guys at the very least. We don't see anything of the sort. No safety cars either, and we can just get a straight run to the very end. But before we get into things with the whole track layout, overtaking opportunities, and the likes, let's take a look at how the Premier X standings looks after 5 rounds and after Vallu secured another win at Hungary. And as you can see, Vallu a second ahead of Calcifer to finish off the last race. But he finds himself nearly 70 points ahead of Calcifer right now. And Jacob, even with the different point system that we have here in FXR, that is a huge, huge margin.
Yeah, it's a commanding lead. I mean, it's still you have to do some mental work to work out exactly how commanding it is, because of course, lots of people not so used to the point system we have. But yeah, nevertheless, Value is in a very, very good spot right now. That much is certain. If he has more issues along the sort of connection issues that have plagued him maybe a couple of times, particularly last time out in Hungary, though, things could start to run against him. So he can't rest on his laurels quite yet. He needs to be scoring all the points he can all the way through. And, I would say he needs to be looking out for the constructor standings as well. But actually, AlphaTauri are just looking pretty much just as dominant there as well.
Yeah, I mean, AlphaTauri are dominating in the constructors. The constructors' points are a little bit off. So don't go by them as exactly as they are written down, as they are slightly different. AlphaTauri are still leading the Constructors' Championship. Dougie Falcons third in the drivers. He's got a nicer 26-point buffer to Iceman, who's clawed his way back up the championship. And then you've got Paris Burrell in the P5. Paris, who wasn't able to race with us last time around in Hungary, but we're going to be hoping that he will be racing tonight. And if I just double check, is at Paris Burrell racing? He is indeed. He's back in the McLaren, and he's going to be looking to get his first win of the season.
Yeah, certainly. And it's great news for us. It's always great news when all the drivers can make it, of course. But particularly Paris, when we need someone to be up there challenging Value at the very, very front, Paris is one of the prime contenders to do so. And so I'm very glad that we are going to be seeing Paris back for this one. And things haven't quite shaped up the way we thought with maybe Ulash challenging Value over the course of this season. Ulash has not had a very good attendance record thus far this season, which certainly hasn't helped. And when he has attended, it's not really gone his way either. But Paris is taking up that mantle to a certain extent. Calcifer, Dougie Falcons also doing good jobs, mixing it up there with Value. But as we saw last time out in Hungary, Dougie couldn't quite live with the pace of the front two. And then the gap between Value and Calcifer was actually really hard to judge because there was a lot of desynchronization going on. In the end, though, it was Value that took the win.
Yeah. And then behind Paris in the championship standings, you've got the Alfa Romeo pair of A2 UK and AJ. A2, who has been really consistent. I think he got that P3, if I recall correctly. Yes, P3 back in Baku. And he's, since then held on to that kind of spot in the top 10 of the championship. AJ in P7, followed by Rainbow in P8. And then you've got the Racing Point duet of Lappy and Cheggers completing the top 10. But, as we've spoken about before, that battle from AJ all the way down to kind of Maverick is super, super tight.
Yeah, all the way down to Mavericks. And then, you can even go further. I mean, one really huge result for any driver down to Elon Tusk even could really skyrocket them up the order. It's interesting there's such a gulf between A2 UK and AJ still at this stage. A2, living off of some really good results towards the start of the season. It's not been quite so good in the more recent races for him. 7th last time out in Hungary was definitely decent, though. But I am surprised that he has got such a gulf to the rest of the midfield when it's so tight thereafter. And it's really just a credit to him that he's been able to pull that sort of gap. And the Alfa Romeos as a team also doing really solidly there to be 6th and 7th. We were thinking more like 10th and 11th going into the season. So they are both outperforming, I would say.
Well, I mean, I've got my power rankings in front of me now, and we put them down as P13 and P10. So I think A2 at the very least has really been outshining himself. To be fair, when we did make the predictions, we expected Ulas to be a lot higher up the orders, and because of that, it has promoted everyone just a little bit. But take nothing away, A2 and AJ have both driven fantastically, and AJ has received some bad luck and has had some misfortune in some races. So he is climbing up the order, closing back in on to A2, and in the thick of this battle. Racebug P12 for Williams, and he might need to start upping his game. That constructors battle, he needs to be up there. He needs to be beating Maverick to kind of counter the advantage that Vallu has over Calcifer at the top of the standings.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if they want to be taking the battle to AlphaTauri, then Racebug really does need to be looking at wherever Maverick is in the standings and just trying to outperform him race after race. Currently also in a battle with Ferrari. Of course, Ferrari are benefiting quite a lot from reserve points as well that have been gone their way, because Simons has not been a regular sort of big point scorer, at least for Ferrari, sitting down there in 21st in the standings at the moment. But several other drivers have stood in and gained Ferrari some decent points here and there. And Dougie, of course, doing a great job. So those three definitely the power teams at the moment. They have the top three drivers in the Drivers' Championship as well, so you would expect them to be doing well in terms of points. But yeah, as you mentioned, Racebug ought to be looking at Maverick and trying to beat him pretty much race in, race out.
Yeah. And should we mention, I just want to go a little bit further down the order. I actually jumped down to Omar B in P17. He had his debut race in Premier X last time out at Hungary. Got driver of the day. We've got a nice little hot lap video from him that will be coming on your screens in about 10 minutes or so before we jump into qualifying. But he had a good showing. He picked up, what was it, a P5, if I'm not mistaken, in Hungary. And I mean, he's shown that he's ready to mix it up with the big boys.
Yeah, it was in fact P4, even better than that he managed there. It was a really great race, and particularly there was a part in the middle of the race where honestly there wasn't a whole lot of action going on elsewhere, but Omar was providing the entertainment by charging his way up through the field, and that was really fun to watch, and definitely showed some sparks of greatness there in the Mercedes in that race. If he can get that sort of race pace and get it nailed in qualifying as well here today, then we might well see Omar be again being another one to really shoot up the order and inject some life into Mercedes after Rainbow, hasn't really been attending very much lately, and they've been having issues with, of course, Omar just recently coming into that seat. So, Mercedes is another team that we might expect to really be up there challenging with the top three if they had the sort of consistent attendance that some of the other teams had, and maybe Omar can sort of inject that life into them.
Yeah. And we do have a little bit of an announcement regarding one of the drivers who will be joining us for the first time in Premier X. But before we go to that, here's a little interview that I was able to have with Racebug earlier on in the week. With Racebug, driver for Williams, currently sitting down in P12 in the championship. Racebug, thank you very much for joining me. First off, how has the season been for you?
Well, first of all, hello everyone at home, and how has the season been for me? A bit of a weird one, a bit of up and down. I could start with China, since it's the beginning of the season. I've been a bit, I'm not exactly finding the word, but it hasn't suited me, the fact that those tracks, at least for the most of the season so far, we've had to either choose to qualify on the mediums or the softs. Those kinds of strategies usually are not favorable to me, because I usually just screw up myself on the mediums. So yeah, that kind of put me on the back foot at places like China and Azerbaijan, but it is what it is. China, I had a decent start. I just didn't have the pace because I'm not very good there. And at Baku, it was just a mess. I actually have a bit of a funny story with my Jeff, but that's maybe a talk for another day. But yeah, that was just a mess of a race. At France, I had to miss it. And I guess my season really starts going underway at Britain.
Yeah, and Britain, you got that P8, your best result of the season, and Britain was crazy. I think in all divisions there were safety cars, but you mentioned you had your Jeff there. I know you race engineer for Gaunt in the D1 races. Gaunt race engineers for you in the PX races. Does it help being able to use Gaunt as a guinea pig in the D1 races?
I don't know if I can say that, especially
She might
because
be watching. She might be watching. I'll just put that out there.
No, but it's just that it just figures that the only race I cannot Jeff her because I have to commentate. She gets a podium, so I guess
Just
because
stop
for
jeffing
comparison,
it. It's clear.
for comparison, she was leading it in China. And we had the brilliant idea to teach her how to do burnouts while she was leading the race under safety car, and we can see how well that turned out. So we are not the greatest duo, if I can, at least in terms of results. But now it is a bit useful, especially to check stuff like tire wear and. In the event of a safety car, maybe some alternate strategy that might work. That is sometimes useful for the race where I'm the one in the seat. But with the pace of the guys in PX, it's just a matter of how confident I feel on that track, because I'm not most of the tracks so far I haven't been the best at. China and Azerbaijan and Great Britain was really the first one where I felt confident and I was able to get from last to P8. But yeah, it might be helpful, but generally with the pace of those guys I really need to be on the top of my game to even barely get into the top 10 because they are very fast.
Well, you mentioned, it's a struggle to get into the top 10, but we have seen, I know you said to me personally after China that because of the laps on the medium tyres, you managed to squeeze into that top 10. How do you approach qualifying sessions now? Because do you kind of want that, let's say, the honour of making it into that top 10 shootout, or do you just think about it from a race strategy point of view?
My thought process into China and Azerbaijan was that the guys were fast enough for me to not be able to get into Q3. I didn't think I was going to get into Q3 on the softs. That's why I went on them. And I proved myself wrong both times. Then, I was a bit in the back foot. At China, there was that big incident into turn 5, I believe it is, with Hulash. He got bumped from behind and came across the racetrack. I had to brake for that, so I lost not any advantage, but since I was a bit on the back foot in terms of the tires, I wanted to at least get into the DRS train, and that took that strategy out of the window right away. Azerbaijan, it was just a bit of a mess, lots of contacts, not only with the wall, and that was just a bad day for me. Now at Hungary, I believe it has been the only track ever since to do that, to have that choice be more prevalent. At Hungary, I actually went on the mediums, and I was 0.5 off of my best lap on the mediums. I could have gotten into Q3 on them, but I guess it was just not meant to be.
Let's talk a little bit about the championship standings, because you're currently in 12th on 42 points, but it's very tight around you. You jump up to 7th place, AJ 67 points, only 25 up ahead. A good result could even see you jump ahead of him. Where do you kind of see yourself tying in the championship battle? Who do you really think? Okay, that's the guy that I'm aiming to be around every single race.
Well, I don't. That's an interesting question, because I don't really have a rival, if I can say that. Of course, I just want to be the best I can be. I just want to get the best results I can get. And again, there's so much quality in this league that if I'm not on a track that I'm good at or that I feel confident at, I'm gonna drop so far back. I can't really have a rival, so to speak, because so far in all of these races I've been battling different people. For example, at China, I was battling a bit with with the Alfa Romeos. I haven't fought them, at least directly, ever since. So it's really been interesting, because even at Hungary, I had no idea I was so close to Elon Tusk in the standings, and then unfortunately we had the collision. But that would probably be a battle between us because he was directly in front of me in the championship. So yeah, it's been interesting because I really don't think I can set my sights on anyone.
I mean, someone maybe you can somewhat set your sights on, or not set your sights on, but work with is your teammate Calcifer. And of course, coming into this season of Premier X, we tried something a little bit different with the whole draft system of getting teammates to make the team somewhat evenly balanced. And now when I look at the Constructors' Championship, I realise that it's not balanced at all. I guess from second down to 8th, it's fairly balanced. But my question is, how have you found, have you been able to work with Calcifer? Have you done practicing together? And I guess with Monza coming up, are we going to be seeing some more slipstreaming in qualifying?
Well, yes, tried. Yes, tried to to carry me, if I can say that. I did learn a few things, especially into China. I really believe that was the sole reason why I got into Q3, was that I was able to learn from him a bit, because I'm really bad at China. Since then, we haven't really had the opportunity to get too much track time together. And now with Monza, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to race because my pedal set broke. So I haven't been able to get that fixed yet. Hopefully tomorrow I can. But after that, I also have my shifters dying on me. So yeah, for example, at Hungary, I got overtaken by Iceman at some point. I believe it was like lap 15, something like that. And 2 laps after I got overtaken by him, I go on the brakes into turn 1, and it just stopped downshifting. I did the entire first sector in 8th gear, and after that, it was just a lottery. Every single braking zone, I had to just spam the downshifting button and see whatever gear I would get. Because yeah, that was just how Hungary went. It was, I believe it was kind of a miracle that I got P10 at the end. And yeah, I might not be able to race at Monza, which is a shame. If I do, I do feel confident there because, again, I did a lot of grinding on it because of that esports event a couple months ago. So it's a track I feel strong at, but yeah, I'm still not sure if I'm going to be able to attend it, unfortunately.
Right, and I'm just going to say, if you want to leave the call after I say this, I fully understand, but I guess that means in Hungary you had a few bugs in your race.
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, I did. I managed to do my best Senna impersonation, but it wasn't for a win. It was for a position with a 1 in it, but it wasn't quite as important, if I can say that.
I would say FXR P10, no, P12 in the championship, P10 in a race is even better than winning an F1 race, to be honest, but hey. Racebug, thank you very, very much for your time. Can I get a quick prediction? Where do you think or if you are able to race at Monza, where do you think you'll be able to finish?
I think I could get into that group of the top 8. Of course, I'm talking about the championship, right? The top 8 in the championship, or second to 8, is quite close. I think I could maybe, with a bit of luck, perhaps in a DRS train, I could potentially get into the top 5. But yeah, I feel confident on it, and it would be just a matter of where you come out after your pit stop. Because of course, if you get DRS and the guy ahead of you has another car that didn't stop yet but gets to DRS and manages to overtake him cleanly, and you don't, you lose a lot of time, which can alter a lot of your strategy. So yeah, it is a very sensitive track. You have to really manage your fuel, your engine temperatures. So it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, if I am able to race, I can see myself being in the top 5, but yeah, that would probably be best case scenario. More realistically, from P10 to P7.
Right. Well, Racebug, thank you again very much for joining me, and best of luck in the rest of the championship.
No, thank you.
Absolutely fantastic to be able to speak to Racebug. And the good news for Racebug is I believe he did get some parts for his wheel. I know his downshift button, as he likes to call it, isn't working. I told him to just use one of the buttons on his wheel as a downshift. So I don't know how it would work, but maybe Racebug will try it out. Downshifting here at Monza is fairly important.
Yeah, quite a lot of very, very heavy braking zones, as you can see here on this lovely track map. Into turn one, especially, got to make sure you get down the gears in time, because if you're even just like a split second late in the braking zone, either on the brakes or in going down the gears, you can run really deep. And sometimes even it's one of the very, very few corners where you ever so slightly run the risk of locking the rears in F1 2020. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it can happen and it can send you round. So.
Yeah. And, well, speaking of this track, in both the Division 1 and Division 2, the race winner was not someone who started on the front row of the grid, which maybe highlights just how easy it is to overtake here at Monza in Division 2. But Kawhi took the win from Simu and Neo Element. And in Division 1, Reed, don't mute me. I know you want to, but I won. I got my first ever win. I'm happy. And I got the win over my teammate Walter and Peso in P3. And speaking of a certain Walter, Jacob, I believe that certain Walter is actually going to be racing with us tonight. So he's got the bump up, and he's going to try to show us what he's capable of against the big boys in Premier X.
Yeah, you win, and he's the one who gets to race in Premier X. That doesn't seem very fair to me, but no. Walter looked incredibly fast in Division 1 yesterday. His pole time was a 1:18.1. I think it was about 0.4 faster than everyone else, maybe even more than that. It was a huge margin. And that is it's going to be up there with the sort of times we're going to be seeing come Q3 today, most likely. So, yeah, I'd expect Walter to be on the pace, at least at this circuit, pretty much straight away, based on his showing in Division 1.
Yeah. And of course, Walter isn't the only celebrity who's going to be showing their face in Premier X. After Hungary, I think everyone's favorite driver was very clearly Mickey. But after his race at Monza, I think Chelach has become the new fan favorite in FXR. And he's going to be having a showing here tonight. He qualified on pole, got a little bit unlucky with some incidents into the now being termed Kitta Scari, or as Jacob and I are using a little bit, Ammo Scari. So he's going to be hoping for a slightly better run and to really put a nail in the coffin to all the doubters tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big opportunity for him to really show up and put a big sort of marker, a big pin in the board and just say, look, this is what I can do. This is what I am capable of. And yeah, a big opportunity, but a lot of pressure at the same time. So hopefully he can handle it.
Yeah, hopefully he can. And hopefully we don't see any incidents, because there would be drama. And I say this with a smile on my face, but if it happens, there will be some wise choice words, I'm sure, in the Premier X chat. But without further ado, we had our driver of the day from last week take us for a hot lap here at Monza to show us how things are done. With Omar B for a hot lap here at Monza. Turn 1, you need to get yourself all the way over to the left. You're going to brake at about 160 meters, dropping it down into second gear. Get right over the curb and through the curve of turn 2 in the Retrofiglio chicane. On the power as early as you can and try to minimize wheel spin by short shifting. Curva Grande is, of course, completely flat. Heading into the Roger chicane, pull the car over to the right, braking at about 150 meters again. Third gear, make sure you get a smooth run. Use all of the curb through the left and the right into Lesmo 1, about 40 meters on the brakes. So fifth gear, back on the power, keep up that minimum speed. And into Lesmo 2, about 60, 70 meters on the brakes again before you get back on the power as you make your way down the hill and into the start of Sector 3. Ascari is where so much time can be found, 120 meters on the brakes. So fifth gear, back on the power, hold it tight through the right. And a little lift before you sling it into the final part of Ascari. Back on the power, and it is just Parabolica that remains. You can brake super late here, about 80 meters. Fifth gear, back on the power, let the car all the way out, and then pull it back over to the right. Take the shortest line to the start-finish line to complete your lap here at Monza. Well, that was a hot lap from Omaby, and he's going to be hoping to pull that one off in qualifying to see where it can take him. But we've got the track map in front of us, or next to us, I should say, Jacob. A lot of overtaking opportunities, a lot of slipstreaming opportunities for qualifying as well. And to be honest, you can pretty much overtake into every corner on the circuit, maybe with the exception of Lesmo 2.
Yeah, I mean, Lesmo 2 it's got a bit of a braking zone to it. You know, if someone makes a mistake on the exit of Lesmo 1, it's not impossible. You know, if this was Monaco, that would probably be the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit. So, you know, you can't write it off completely. Yeah, no, I mean, I do really like this track. I love watching racing at this track, but I also like driving at the track as well. It's quite simple in a way, so you can kind of just relax and get into a groove around here relatively easily. You're not being thrown corner after corner, one after the other all the time as well. So you do have time to sort of stop, take a breather throughout the lap as well. It doesn't feel quite so hectic as some other circuits, and everything just flows really nicely.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly there because I agree. I mean, you've got a lot of space between the corners, and I think when you come to, let's say, the two Lesmos and Parabolica, I think you can take them fairly nicely on lap after lap. But I think when you take all of the chicanes, including Ascari, to be fast at Monza, and I think I said this about Hungary, but I think this is even more the case about Monza. You have to be so much on the limit, and especially with the Retifilio, again with all three chicanes, you have to cut them literally inch perfectly. If you cut it a bit too much, that's a warning. If you cut it a little bit too little, you get your wheels going over the curbs and it unsettles the car. It throws you off, especially going into the Roger chicanes, turns 4 and 5. You have to really throw your car over turn 5. And if you get that just wrong, you can be finding yourself sideways and having to catch a massive tank slapper. So I feel that you can take it easily, yes, but I think if you do that, you'll find yourself losing maybe even up to about half a second a lap. So I think it is one of those tracks that you do have to be always at the limit, especially in those three chicanes.
Yeah, no, I think you are right, actually. In terms of specifically the corner cutting as well, yeah, I think that is absolutely valid. I mean, turn 1, turn 4, you have to cut those in a major way if you want to have any hope of taking those chicanes with any speed whatsoever. And just finding the exact right amount to cut it without going over that line is very, very difficult to do at times, particularly at turn 4. I think it can be really, really tough. But yeah, you know, I suppose if you're going for a Sunday drive against the AI, it's nice, it's easy. If you are competing in Premier X, it's a little bit less easy.
Well, I think one thing we can agree on is last week we had our disagreement about how easy is it to corner cut in Hungary. I think we can probably both agree that it's easier to corner cut here at Monza than it is at Hungary. Again, the first chicane you can invalidate so easily into turn 1. Roger chicane both on entry and on exit, and Ascari as well, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it looks like we're having a little bit of a lobby restart here, so apologies for the very brief delay we have, but we should be getting into qualifying quite soon now. Have we mentioned the weather for today?
See, I like that. Have we mentioned the weather? It is going to be a light cloud, but for some reason, it just you know when you're in a conversation with someone and you just kind of forget what to say. Because I literally had this about 20 minutes ago, and I was talking to a friend who I hadn't spoken to in a very long time, and it got to that point where after about 35 minutes, we kind of ran out of stuff to say, and it was just like, "So, how's the weather?"
That wasn't quite. I mean, to be fair to me, we do usually make an announcement of the weather. I mean,
Yeah,
it's there on
true.
the screen for you. It's like cloud in qualifying. It's like cloud in the race. It's not
was-
that
It
exciting.
was just how you brought it up. It was just a matter. It was like a 3-second pause, and Jake was like, "So, have we spoken about the weather? How's the weather looking?"
I could have brought up all
Oh.
manner of worse things, trust me. But
There is going to be no snow. It's been sunny in Italy all throughout the week, according to our forecast. Our producer Reed, he lives very close to the circuit, so oh, apparently he hasn't looked outside of his windows. So, well, thanks for the weather update, Reed. That was really useful. But no, it's going to be dry, a light cloud, no change in weather from qualifying to the race.
okay, new update. It is fine right now, according to Reed. So there we go. It is fine,
What is the
everybody.
fine? We need
No,
more description.
No, that's all you're getting. Take it however you want it. It is fine out there. And maybe some drivers who aren't quite so on the pace here in the dry might think that fine is actually a bit of a sprinkling of rain, but most of them, I'm pretty sure, will be glad that it's only going to be light cloud here today and nothing that's going to be getting the track wet at all.
Okay. Jacob, should we do some predictions? We usually do,
Yeah.
a little bit of prediction. Should we talk about what we think the Q2, Q3 cutoff times and, of course, the pole time will be tonight?
Sure, yeah. I will let you start with the Q3 or the
okay.
Q2 cutoff time at least. I'll let you start with that.
So, Q2 cutoff time, I am going to go with an 18-2. Wait, sorry, no,
Wow.
not an 18-2, a 19-0.
A 19-0. Okay, yeah, 18.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was the second off. Yeah.
that is electric pace for if that was going to be what they're going to be doing in Q1.
Vallu out in Q1.
I mean, I'm gonna have a bit more faith in the field than that. I'm gonna say more like an 18-8 as the cutoff time for getting into Q2, but that might be overestimating some of the drivers.
I'm writing this down. 19-0 for me, 18-8 for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, and our producer's just done an 18-757, did you say?
Okay. You said he's done an 8. If he's done an 18-757, he's got better at the game since I last saw him playing it. But
Reed's weird. I remember when our producer first started playing F1. It was like me. Techno managed to get him involved in the game. He started racing it, and I was like, "Damn, Reed's got in quick, very quickly." And then he just stopped playing. He just realized he was too good for the game. And if he joined, we'd be saying Yano who right now. So that's why Reed doesn't race.
yeah, no, it's very, very noble of him to not race because honestly, it would kill the competition for us and it would just be so unfair on everyone else. So thank you very much, Reed, for your very, very noble sacrifice. Anyway, so let's talk about the cutoff time to getting into Q3, shall we? I'll take the lead on this one. I will say, I'm gonna say an 18-3.
18-3. I see. I was thinking something like that, but I thought that's a bit too. I think that's a bit too quick for the cutoff time into Q3. I'm gonna go with an 18-5.
Right. Okay. I mean, it just seems like I have 2/10 more faith in the field than you do, pretty much on both occasions thus far. I guess then we could talk about crunch time, the actual pole position time.
You're forgetting something, Jacob.
Uh-huh.
Production. What's your prediction for the Q3 cutoff time? Wow, a 17.9. No, 3 significant figures at the end of 3 decimal places, really. Just in 79. That's very inaccurate, I think. 900. Wow, it's not even like a 96, just straight up 900. Okay then. Poll time.
Poll time.
Do you want to let production start off?
Yeah,
so
why not?
You don't give him any ideas. Yeah. 17-3. I was really hoping that Reed would just do his standard kind of meme thing of saying a time that's higher than one of the times he's already said. To say it'd be easier. Which, to be fair, might happen depending if the drivers try to put down a medium tire in a medium tire lap in Q2 to start on the mediums. Jacob, do you want to go next, or shall I give my time?
I'll go now. I will say I'm going to go a tiny bit slower than Reed, and I'm going to say a 17. I'm going to say a pole time of a 17.6 actually.
17.6.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, and I think I said this as well before we came live, but I'm going to say a 17.5.
All right. Well, now we will be able to actually find out what the times people are actually going to set is going to be, as we are now finally into qualifying here for Premier X Season 2, Round 6, the Italian Grand Prix. And I believe, before the pause menu came up there, I think I caught a glimpse of 18 drivers in the field today. So not quite a full grid, but nevertheless, a very solid turnout indeed. There is Walter and Chelark, Turbo Tortoise, new reserve driver coming in alongside Sepp. So a few new faces here today, but a lot of familiar names as well.
Okay, so I want to come out with some more predictions. The 2 of the drivers who are jumping in, and they have raced in FXR before, which is Walter and Chelark. what do we think? Do we think they're going to be flops, or do we think they're going to be pog?
I think I think they're going to be mid pog or low pog. I'm going to say
Low
not
pog.
like super pog, but I'm going to go
Right.
low pog for them.
So it's like, you know when you had like have a really short face, but it's not that. Like your mouth's just half open.
Yeah, it's like a sort of, it's like when you sort of you raise your lower lip a little bit and you kind of raise your eyebrows and you go, mildly impressive. Not bad.
I'm trying to make this face right now, but I have no idea if I'm doing it properly. So
Well, unfortunately, we can't see to just verify whether you are or not. But nevertheless, it looks like
the race.
production is doing a very good job of pointing out that Racebug is the first car out there as usual, though as usual, he has also let other cars through in the form of the two Hasses. That is Iceman and Chelark, who is in the other Hass for today. Shame also to see that Paris Barrel, after we thought he was going to be arriving here today, actually not showing up after all. So only Elon Tusk once again flying the flag for the McLarens.
Yeah, maybe Paris is just going to be joining in a little bit late. At least I hope, as that's Racebug getting a little bit on the grass out of Ascari and almost having a bit of a Spinala moment. But he'll be able to keep it on tracks. And it's going to be a Haas 1-2 to start off their laps. And that is Iceman and Chelarch, as Luca is not racing tonight.
Indeed, yeah. So we'll see now as they're about to get underway for their first flying laps. And I believe we actually have an issue right now where we don't actually have any in-game sound, so apologies for that one, but hopefully we can get that one rectified for you sooner rather than later. Racebug's actually headed straight back into the pit, so I don't really know what that's about from the Williams driver. Maybe he didn't actually want to go out early, but he knew he had a reputation to uphold as the guy that always goes out to the pits first, and that's why he's just come straight back in again.
Yeah, it's like the times, a good 10 years, I want to say 10 years ago, but it's probably like 7, 8 years ago, where you'd always get the lower end teams coming out of qualifying straight away. And actually, to be fair, that's still the case now. But it'd always be, those lower teams going out straight away, get a bit of airtime, a bit of time for their sponsors on TV. And Racebug's left the session. So maybe he just didn't have a setup. Well, either way, it's park firming conditions, so he can't get a setup now. And hopefully Racebug can rejoin the session at some point, as we're seeing one of the Haas's flying through Ascari in the number 14 car. Is that Iceman? Yes, it is. He's got the Fernando Alonso number printed on that front nose cone. And into Parabolic, a little bit wide on entry. And it is very easy to just miss that turning point by ever so slightly. And let's see what Iceman puts in.
It's a 1:19.2 then to start off proceedings for the Macedonian. With the Alonso number, as you mentioned, I'm sure once the Kimi Räikkönen number becomes available, you might look for that one instead. Sepp already going into the 1:18s there, so good account of himself, the reserve in the Mercedes at the very first lap of qualifying here. Omar B goes a few tenths slower than his teammate for the day. Simons pops himself up ahead of Iceman and Omar B as well. That's a decent lap from the Austrian in the Ferrari. Turbo Tortoise coming up. What's his first message to the rest of the field going to be? It's a 1:19.137.
Yeah, so very close from P2 down to P5 right now, a tenth separating everyone. As the first Alfa Romeo is looking to complete his lap. A2 UK puts in a 19.5, but AJ, will he be able to do better than his teammate?
We'll have to wait and see. You'd have to hope so, though, to be honest. A 1:19.5 from A2 UK. That's comfortably away from where he would like to be, I'm sure. Here comes AJ across the line, and he does indeed manage to beat his teammate by a whole second at that, or rather 7 thousandths shy of a second. That is a 1:18.548, top of the order right now for AJ. Here comes Max across the line, also on a 1:19.5, just like A2 UK. So still an Alfa Romeo topping and tailing the field, but that's kind of the opposite of what we're actually used to seeing from them. Usually they're right together, no matter what, in qualifying at least. But in the first lap, in this qualifying, complete opposite. Yeah,
and I guess it's exactly the same as a Division 1. An Alfa Romeo at the top and an Alfa Romeo at the back as well. I'm not saying which Alfa Romeo is which. Vallu's still in the pits, as is Racebug. Lappy is, he's had to abort his lap because he's invalidated Cheguini Bambini. Oh, that is a good name, Cheg. That is a solid name right there.
Cheguini Bambini, as you mentioned here, in the racing point. Yet to set a lap time, but he has plenty of company in that regard, so I don't think he needs to worry too much about it. Is currently pushing on this lap through De La Rogia. That'll look pretty tidy for sure. Didn't have any kick out with the rear end or anything like that, but maybe leaving a little bit of time on the table as we head through Lesmo 2. Again, that all looks like it's all on the right line. He's putting the car in the right places at the very least. And we'll see whether it's fast or not come the end of the lap. I haven't been keeping track of exactly what your Sector 2 time ought to be, I'm afraid. Runs a little bit wide there through Ascari on entry. Manages to collect it pretty nicely, but that might have lost him maybe about a tenth of a second through there.
Yeah, and let's see what this will be. You have to be aggressive, and while Chegwin was a bit aggressive, it wasn't quite the cleanest lap, and you'll probably have to do a second lap on a set of softer tyres at some point. Of course, Cheg is currently P10 in the championship, 1:19.1. That's enough for P3 on the timing sheet.
Yeah, decent lap in the end there for Chegwin. And I'm certain there was more time available to him in Amoscari, as we've agreed to call it sometimes, the Variante Ascari, as it's more commonly known. So, yeah, I think he'll be pretty happy with that 1:19.1, in all honesty. I mean, he's ahead of Iceman, for instance, and Oma B as well. So those are the sorts of drivers that if Chegwin's beating those, he can be very, very happy with himself indeed. Currently, AJ from Simons, who's gone for a second flying lap on the same set of softs to pop himself up in a second, and then Sepp in third. Cheguini, Bambini, Turbo Tortoise, Iceman make the top 6.
Yeah, so AJ's just a clear 3/10 ahead, and then it's, 4/10 separating P2 all the way down to P7. Luppy completing his lap, and you've got Chelarch not too far ahead, who's about to start his first lap in his Premier X career, and let's see what he'll be able to do. First off, though, Luppy, can he jump ahead of Cheguini Bambini?
We do a good job to do so, in all honesty. It's a very decent benchmark indeed that his teammate has laid down. They're very close to each other in the standings. Are they going to be close to each other in qualifying? Yes, they are, for the moment at least. About 2/10 between the pair of them, but 4th and 5th for the time being. Here we are then on board with Chelarch in the Haas, currently at the bottom of the order, but of course hasn't yet set a lap time, so that can just be ignored for the time being. He heads around Curva Grande and down towards the Variante della Roja. Braking, you got to cut a lot of that inside curb, and he didn't cut very much of it there. That wasn't very nice at all from Chelarch through that chicane. So I don't think this is going to be a lap right up there with his highest potential.
No, not at all. And he's got time to come back into the pits and do another lap. So he can just set this down as a banker time. Dougie Falcons is out on medium tires, so Dougie flexing right now. He wants to make it into Q2 on those mediums, and clearly he doesn't plan on starting the race on the mediums as Chelarch just drifts a little bit wide and loses a little bit of time through Amoscari, and now it is just Parabolica remaining.
Yeah, it's not been the best lap in the world for Chelarch, in all honesty, but of course there's quite a lot of pressure on his shoulders. His first lap in Premier X here, and taking a big step up to be here as well. He's not going to abort the lap. He's going to finish it and come across the line. It's only good enough for 11th, 3.5 tenths of a second off the rest of the field. But, considering the magnitude and amount of mistakes there were on that lap, he'll know that there's a lot more inside of himself. He'll know that he has a lot more improvement to come, and he can hope to at least get into the low 119s here.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's over 10 seconds ahead of Vallu, so that's, it must have been an impressive time. But speaking of Vallu, he is on his second flying lap, and this time he is really pushing.
Yeah, he's really going for it here, and not sure what caused him to back out of the first one, or whether it was just a second outlap, as it were. A little bit of a moment on the exit of De La Rogia there. He held it really nicely and manages to steer towards that sort of wall of death, the gravel on the left-hand side, without actually touching the gravel. So perfectly judged in the end, but a shame that he had to have the counter-steering moment in the first place. Looks like Elon Tusk, Dougie Falcons, and Racebug have all invalidated their previous laps and therefore have not been able to set times despite having completed a lap on each of their sets of tyres. Vallu through Ascari, and that all looked okay to me as he'll head up now towards Parabolica.
Yeah, Waters just put in an 18.7. He's jumped up at 2/3. Calcifon and outlap Dougie Falcons on a push lap as well. So is Maverick. But first up, Vallu to complete his lap, and you'd have to assume he's going to be at least in the mid-18s. This looks like an absolute flyer.
It is an absolute flyer, and he's well above the mid-18s. It's an 18 flat from Vallu. Once again, just showing, you know what, whatever you guys can do, I'm better. And he goes clear by half a second at the top of the order. Lovely stuff from the Finnish driver. That is already what would have been pole in Division 1. So that is just how good Vallu is.
Yeah, Vallu flying. And you have to think, those two drivers who are usually up there close to challenging him, Calcifer and Dougie Falcons. I mean, usually we talk about Paris Burrell and Vexit, but they aren't here. So let's see what the Estonian and the American drivers can pull out.
Yeah, and I'm just getting word as well that we're actually going to have a 19 driver grid once we get into the race. Pezzo is also going to be joining, another one of your stablemates from Division 1. So Pezzo will be making his way into this race as well. But of course, we'll be starting at the very back of the grid, having not arrived in time to participate in qualifying.
Well, I guess on the plus side for Pezzo, he won't be able to be murdered into turn 1 like he was yesterday as Maverick crosses the line in 19.0. I saw someone jump up the field. That's Calcifer in 18.391. So currently, that kind of cutoff time is at a 19.5, but we are still expecting those guys towards the bottom of the order, especially, the likes of A2 UK and Oma B to improve.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of time left in several of these drivers' times. As what did you notice from Calcifer?
He just got a 5-place grid penalty for illegal blocking.
Ooh. That's a rough one to say the least. He must have been maybe letting someone through on the exit of the pit lane or something, and just in that sort of pit lane channel there. And sometimes the game can perceive that as blocking.
He just set his fastest time, so he was at the end of his hot lap. The only person ahead of him is the Alfa Romeo. So did he get in the way of A2 UK, who had only just come out of the pit? So that's a very strange one. Either way, Calcifer has a 5-place grid penalty. Maybe the stewards will deem it to be a bit too odd and might throw a server restart in before the race to remove that penalty, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, trouble with these stuff is it requires a full server restart. It's not that easy in the game to deal with that sort of penalties. It'd be lovely if there was a sort of override button that you could have sometimes and say, look, that's not a penalty, we're getting rid of it. But it's like when you get a 5-second penalty, an undeserved 5-second penalty at the beginning of a race, you can't appeal it because you serve it in the pits, and it's just a bit of a nightmare. So that is really bad news for Calcifer, actually, and hopefully it's not going to harm him too much going onto the grid. But yeah, I mean, even if he manages to qualify on pole, he's going to be starting down in 6th, and it's going to be very, very hard to challenge the likes of Vallu from there.
Yep. Well, let's see what he can pull out. Maybe he's just going to have to opt for the alternate strategy, start on the medium tyres down. Well, he'll be hoping in P6, that is, if he can take a pole, but otherwise he might be starting down in P7, P8.
Indeed, yeah. Sorry for the pause menu, everybody. We're just trying to sort out a couple of the issues we are having with the game right now. You know what the F1 games can be like, so hopefully we'll see what will happen with those. As just got this Renault right now. I think that's Max driving around, unless I'm very much mistaken. Number 60-something. Oh, there we go. There's the sound. And it wasn't Max, it was Walter. So that shows how much I know. But nevertheless, he is out there on an outlap. And we have the glorious sounds of Monza back with us now.
Yeah, Walter has car number 69. I don't know why you'd want to have that number, but hey, it works for Walter. Let's see what he can do. He's already in P5 on an 18.7, but he clearly wants to improve a little bit more, unless he's planning on giving a friend a slipstream. And there is an Alfa Romeo not too far behind, so that might be the plan for Walter. I mean, he is an Alfa Romeo in D1, so he does know AJ and A2 UK, and judging by his entry into T1 and 2, he's not using any ERS, so I think he's just setting himself up to give a nicer slipstream to the Alpha behind.
Interesting. Not the sort of thing you usually see between across teams, I should say, but as you mentioned, he is usually an Alfa Romeo driver in Division 1, and is actually something that was, I think we saw in F1, was it at Abu Dhabi? There was someone, I can't remember who it was now, someone gave Sainz a tow, and Sainz gave them a tow back. But I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But nevertheless, yeah, we got A2 UK, Max, Chelark, Dougie Falcons, all in the sort of danger area right now. Elon Tusk and Racebug only just ahead as well. You've got to expect that Dougie Falcons at least is going to be able to, put himself right up towards the top of the order. So Chelark, Max, A2 UK, they are in trouble right now, and they do need to improve.
Yeah. And I've just realized what Walter's doing. He likes to do this thing where he does his lap in Q1, but he doesn't use a full fuel mix, or in this case, it seems ERS. So Let's see if Walter improves, because he might just be doing his standard mini sandbagging in the opening session. He'll come across the line. Is it an improvement? No, it is not.
No, it doesn't look like he's given anyone a terribly effective slipstream. The Alfa Romeo behind has come straight into the pits. So, yeah, maybe just getting a few practice laps in for the beginning of the race itself. And getting an idea of what slightly used softs feels like with maybe a fuller fuel load than usual. Here comes Dougie Falcons, though, in the Ferrari through Parabolica, the final corner of the circuit. And up towards the line we go. What's it going to be? It's good enough. It's a 1:18.769. That is enough to put him up into 5th behind Iceman, just ahead of Walter, though, but well away from Vallu's pace. And I think Dougie Falcons probably won't be too pleased when he sees that.
Yep. And 1 minute left in the session. He's not going to be able to do another lap unless he's got enough fuel to do a second out lap right now and then push again. What can Max do? Currently right in that drop-off zone on a 19.5. So is Chelach and A2 UK. And Max needs to nail Parabolica. He gets a decent run, uses all of the track, pull it over nice and tight, Max. No, that's just a little bit too late. And it is a 19.2 for Max, so he's up to P13.
Yeah, that...
And Racebug has just retired from the session, so not sure quite what's happened there. Elon Tusk is on an outlap. A2 UK is in the pits. He's just come out, so I think they've got that older glitch where it tells us there's only 10 seconds left in the session, but there's usually a minute or so more. So Chelach, this is going to be his final push lap. He needs to absolutely nail it, and can the D2 driver put out some good rep points for his Division 2 compatriots and get himself into Q2.
This is the big opportunity for him right here to really set out his stall and establish himself. Heading through the Rettifilio, that all looked pretty okay from the Haas driver. Curva Grande, not too much to think about. You want to try and keep it as close to the right-hand side as possible without touching the grass. Chelach leaving a little bit of a margin there. Into De La Roggia, and he cuts too much. And that is almost certainly going to be it for the Haas driver. I don't think he'll have time to get round again, even with the glitch in terms of the quali time. So 18th and last of the qualifiers, at least, will be the fate for Chelach, unfortunately, here and now. A2 UK is not going to be able to improve either. So he is going to be stuck down in 17th. The checkered flag has come out for him, unless that's a mistake. So terrible, terrible news for him.
I don't think A2 would have missed the time. He's usually quite smart getting out of the pits and making sure he gets his final lap in. So I think it might just be a bit of an issue with the game. Let's see if Elon Tusk can improve as he makes his way to that Sector 2 Delta. He is almost 2 tenths down, so he has to absolutely nail Moscari. And again, you should just take a little bit of curb on the exit. Elon Tusk stays well away, and that just might cost him that crucial bit of time.
Yeah, of course. A few drivers out on track right now, but Elon Tusk, the most important of them all, needs to be able to get up ahead of Racebug. He's had the opportunity presented to him by Racebug, retiring from the session early, not being out here to try and respond. And indeed, he cannot respond as Elon Tusk goes up into 15th, just squeaking ahead of the Williams in the end there. Now, what is A2 UK doing? Is he actually done in this session, or is he able still to set a lap time? He has invalidated anyway. He did have enough time. Look, he's pushing, but he invalidated his lap. So the Alfa Romeo driver, who currently sits 6th in the driver's standings, will be starting this race in 17th unless Calcifer has an absolute nightmare in Q2.
That is a big, big shame. Maybe there is time for him to start a new lap, but I don't think there is, and there it is. The session has now ended. And that is disastrous for A2 UK, disastrous for Chelach and Racebug as well. And I think all three of them probably had the pace to be higher up the order. And they're going to be ruining those mistakes that they made in qualifying.
Yeah, and looking down then and checking the cutoff time for our predictions. I think I was maybe a bit optimistic with my cutoff time. It was a 19.2 in the end. That was the cutoff time. And Elon Tusk getting himself into Q2. Nicely done from the Canadian. I reckon he'll be pleased with that. Max also making it into Q2. He's made a bit of a habit of doing quite well, punching a bit above his weight in terms of qualifying at the very least. And Chegwin continues his good form with 12th there in Q1 and also progressing into Q2.
Yeah. So I'll take the win in terms of predictions for the Q2 cut-off time. To be fair, I think we were all a bit off. I was 2/10 off as well. So let's see what happens here in the second session of qualifying. And let's see as well what tire compounds everyone does go for. Some drivers might opt to start the race on the medium tires, but the alternate strategy, not that much quicker than starting on the soft tires here at Monza.
Yeah, so the incentive might not be there quite so much for these drivers to go out on those mediums. Here is Vallu already out on the softs. He's actually going to be the first car out this time around. Of course, no race bug to challenge him on that one, as he went out in 16th in Q1 after not being out there and able to respond at the very end of qualifying and paying the ultimate price for it when Elon Tusk just so narrowly got ahead of him at the very end there. Of course, we could just be seeing banker laps coming in on these soft tires. It doesn't necessarily confirm that these drivers aren't going to be going on the mediums. In fact, if Vallu didn't want the medium tires, you would have expected him to use those in Q1. So I reckon he'll still try and get through on the mediums here.
Well, actually, if he didn't want to use the tires, he could use them in Q1. We saw Dougie Falcons going out. But, I mean, if he didn't want to, the better option would just be to select the softer set of tires coming into qualifying, and that replaces that one medium set with softs. But I think this will probably be a banker time no matter how you look at it for Vallu. Either he'll go out again on soft tires to improve or out on another set of mediums. We'll have to wait and see what kind of time comes through from the current championship leader.
Yeah, current championship leader, and definitely the hot favorite already going into this race, I would say. He's won 3 races on the bounce now as the Finnish driver. Baku was the last time he didn't emerge victorious. And he already showed what he can do in Q1 here today as well. So a daunting prospect for the rest of the field. That much is for sure. But we'll see if any of them can challenge or not. Dougie Falcons will be disappointed with his Q1 showing. I mean, it was good enough to get him through, which is the most important thing, but he was about 0.7 of a second away from Vallu, and he cannot afford to be that far behind him. So hopefully we'll see a bit more from him here in Q2, and Vallu pinpoint precision through the Rettifilio there.
He took so much curbing to turn 1, Jacob. I do not know how he didn't get an invalidation, because that looked to me like all 4 wheels were off the track, but I guess, as you mentioned, pinpoint precision for Vallu, breaking at that 100-meter board. Actually taking the Roger chicane in 5th gear. Usually you see people going in 4th, sometimes even down to 3rd, but that is not the case for the Finnish man.
Yeah, very interesting to see. Maybe just hoping that it will help the car remain settled when he takes the significant chunk of curbing through the second part of the Della Roggia there, because that can really unsettle the car if you're not careful. And being in a higher gear in the traction zone will just make it a little bit easier on those rear tires when you demand that they throw the power down into the circuit. Again, I thought that would be an invalidation there through Ascari in the middle part there, but no matter, Vallu still goes on without the track lighting up in red, so he will be able to complete this lap time should he want to. Very calm once again through the Parabolica there, staying in a higher gear than you might expect. I believe it was 6th all the way through there and across the line with only a 1:19.2. So very much just a banker lap for the Finn there. Cheguini Bambini going into the 1:19.0s, Zoma B down in the 1:19.9s. So that's not ideal for the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, so clearly it's just a banker time for Vallu, which means that when he was running 5th gear through Roger, that was definitely not the quickest way to do it. We'll see come Q3 exactly how Vallu tries to push at the circuit. AJ, the only Alfa Romeo in qualifying, or the only Alfa Romeo that's left in qualifying, is on his hot lap.
Yeah, and he looked really good in Q1 as well. He is honestly one of the headlines from that session. I think he ended up 3rd in Q1, which is higher than where we would usually see him. He was about 0.5 of a second away from Vallu, which is nothing to shake a stick at whatsoever when Calcifer was about 3.5 away. So AJ seems to have some genuine pace around here. Unfortunately, the pace won't matter that much if he cuts the second part of Della Roggia and invalidates his lap, which is exactly what the British driver in the Alfa Romeo has done.
Yeah, he just understeered a little bit going into the left hand, and that just threw him right on into the curb of turn 6, sorry, of turn 5, and that's why he invalidated. Dougie Falcons is on his outlap. Anybody else on laps? No, everyone else is in the pits. AJ, of course, having just invalidated his lap.
Yeah, and the eagle-eyed amongst our viewers will have just noticed a certain Owen AK joining this session, and actually he is going to be the 20th car on the grid as well, so it's going to be a bit of a showcase for some of the drivers from the lower divisions, particularly from Division 1, but also Chelarch from Division 2, to have a run out here in Premier X when we had a slightly sparser grid than usual. So hopefully we'll be able to see them doing well. Owen, of course, was a mainstay of Premier X last season. With the strengthening of the field, he was one of the casualties in terms of going down to Division 1. But a big opportunity now for him, once again, to strut his stuff back in Premier X and prove that we were wrong to demote him. But it will take a lot to do that, honestly, because the pace is so electric here, as Dougie Falcons now begins his first flying lap of Q2.
Yep. Let's see then what Dougie can pull out. Owen, of course, in his last race back at Abu Dhabi, remember he was our race winner for a few magical minutes. So Owen, he has shown that he can have the consistency, and if things fall his way, he can get some pretty, I use this term way too often, but in this case, it is very appropriate, some very pog results.
Indeed, he can get some very, very pog results indeed. But yeah, no, he was a race winner last season in the same way that Felipe Massa is a world champion. World champion for a few minutes, people like to say about him, but yeah, hopefully, it would be absolutely incredible if he could manage to win today. I don't expect that, especially considering he will be starting from the very back of the grid. Here comes Dougie Falcons, who will not be starting down there, and he'll be hoping to start well inside the top 10, in the front row, perhaps even, would be the aspirations here for the Ferrari driver. And this will be a good statement here, and this ought to confirm, when he comes across the line with this lap, ought to confirm whether his Q1 lap was actually off the pace of what we can expect for him, or whether he does just struggle a bit around this circuit compared to certain others as he heads up towards the line now. And never mind, it's not going to be an indication because he backs out completely.
Yeah, and I guess this means that he does want to go for those medium tires. So what Dougie did is he pushed the entire lap and then he slowed down right in that final sector. So that means that when he goes out on mediums, he can get a good indicator relative to his fastest time to see where he's losing out as a Sep. He messes up the entry into the Roger chicane, does exactly what AJ did, but crucially, he doesn't invalidate his lap time. Bit of a counter steering as Simmons puts in an 18.9 on soft tires. You could actually just see the tire graphics to see exactly what tires everyone is on. There you go. Vallu has put on a set of mediums. He's going to be pushing in a bit. Elon Tusk on mediums, but he hasn't been able to set a good lap as Sep. No invalidation into Amboscari, and nice and clean on the exit as well.
Walter just popped himself up into P2 in the Renault. Looking good is the stand-in for the French outfit. Definitely outperforming Max thus far in qualifying. Sep here coming around Parabolica, the final corner of the lap. And up towards the line, he will go in the Mercedes. It's going to be a 1:19.342. So it's going to put him ahead, comfortably ahead of the likes of Max and Dougie Falcons, but we saw Dougie completely backing out of his lap. So Sep probably won't be too happy with that lap time, considering he set it on soft tires. Iceman, here we go, on the medium tires. He'll be the first driver, apart from Elon Tusk, to really go for it on these medium tires now. And we will see where that will be able to get him, as I think that was Maverick going up into fourth there with a 1:19.137. I know Maverick was not looking forward to this race all that much. I don't think he backs himself at Italy quite so much as he backs himself at certain other circuits. So, you know, to get through into Q2 at the bare minimum will have calmed his nerves just a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, Maverick, that 19.1 on soft tires. Of course, it's still got 5 drivers to set laps. That being said, the majority of them are on medium tires. And the first man here, Iceman, at 52.8, runs wide into Amboscari, and that will invalidate his lap time.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. So he will not give us the first indication of what the medium tires can do after all. Here comes Vallu, though. Calcifer's also out there on mediums further up the road. But Vallu, as he exits the Rettifilia once again, it just all looks so simple when you're on board with Vallu. It never seems like there's any moment of oversteer at all. All the traction zones seem silky smooth. And cutting just to the right extent there. Maybe running a little bit too wide on the exit of De La Loggia. Probably had to delay the time to which he could get on the throttle. And as a result, he has actually backed out of this lap as well. So leaving it slightly late in the session to really set a proper lap is Vallu. But at the moment, he is still 5th. So he might still be able to just get through to Q3 with this time anyway.
Yeah, and of course, Vallu will have that delta time to his current 19.2. So if he feels that he's not quite close enough or not far ahead of it, he should just wait to push 8 second times. Calcifer does a 24.5. So it looks like the guys on medium tires are actually looking to do 2 outlaps. I think Vallu was trying to push at the start, but he had to decide against it. Let's see what Calcifer can do. A bit of an under rotation on the front right into the Rettifilio chicane, but he keeps it clean. And on that exit, it just feels like it takes forever for the car to pick up when you short shift to 4th.
Yeah, indeed. And it's so hard to avoid wheel spin out of there, so short shifting is very necessary, but it's a sort of necessary evil, if you will. Another lock up there into De La Roggia, but I think that one didn't harm him too much whatsoever. Lesmo won, one of the toughest corners on the circuit for my money, but he gets through it with no problems whatsoever. I think AJ just popped himself up into 5th with a 1:19.1. He was able to go comfortably faster than that in Q1. So struggling a little bit relatively here in Q2 is the Alfa Romeo, but hopefully he can really nail a lap together. Calcifer's delta time, of course, not very useful. He's up 3.7 seconds on his previous lap time, but that is a 1:24.5, so we can't learn too much from that one.
It did show that it was purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and I don't think that is a game glitch. I think this might be enough to jump to the top of the standings and on the medium tyres. He's held it for so long, and he's going to have to come into the pits, put on a set of soft tyres. He does not want to start the race on those mediums.
He held that for so long there. He needs to get going pretty quickly or else risk getting a disqualification here. The game can be very overzealous with that at certain points, but thankfully he has got going again. Should head straight back into the pits on those medium tires, as you mentioned. And that is gutting, because it did seem like he was on a really, really good lap in the Williams there. And being able to qualify on the mediums might have made up just a little bit for the fact that he's got that 5-place grid penalty, but it just goes from bad to worse there for Calcifer. It was very impressive car control to hold the drift for as long as he did. But he was not willing to give he wasn't willing to give an inch on the throttle. And he probably should have been in the end, because he might have been able to hold that and come across the line. AJ now goes fastest. That's more like it from the Alfa Romeo, a 1:18.693, getting closer to what he could manage in Q1. However, that is on his second flying lap on that set of soft tires. So those are going to be slightly more compromised than he would like going into the race itself. Here comes Elon Tusk now through the final corner, currently sitting in 11th and in the drop zone. But as he comes up towards the line, he should be able to improve. What's it going to be? It's not much of an improvement. It's enough to get him into 10th for now ahead of Oma B. But I don't think that will be enough to get him into Q3.
Yeah, but Vallu's actually come in the pits for 4 soft tyres. So clearly Vallu not happy with that set of mediums. And it looks like pretty much the entire field then going up 4 softs, with the exception of this man, Oma B. What can he pull out? Can he improve on his current lap of a 19.9? He'll end Sector 2 at 3/10 down. So I think for Oma B, he's going to have to pull this one into the pits and put on a new set of tyres before the clock runs out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. He might be able to complete this lap and then go around again, then head into the pits, but depending on how much time there is actually left in qualifying, it says 2 minutes though, so probably isn't that much more time than that. So I think he will probably have to head into the pits here. And no, he is going to complete this lap coming across the line then, and it's good enough for 8th, just about a 10th.5 shy of his teammate. And, you know, I would be surprised if that time is good enough to get to Q3 once we really get to crunch time here, but a lot of it will depend on how many drivers invalidate on their final couple of attempts here. Dougie Falcon's still sitting in 10th, of course, yet to set a proper lap time in this session. That 1:19.7, we saw him actually braking before the finish line for that one. So a lot of improvement still to come from him as he heads through Sector 2.
Yeah, here we go then for Dougie on the soft tyres. And remember, when he was on those mediums, he really spat out when he crossed the line. So Dougie can definitely go a lot quicker in that final sector. Currently, he's a 10th up at the end of Sector 2. And there was at least a second in that final sector. So we're talking about a low 18 right here for the Ferrari.
Yeah, for sure. That is where I would be expecting him to be in general. Maybe a little bit of dirty air there coming off of Sepp through Parabolica, but he'll get a little bit of a tow towards the start-finish line if he bothers to actually take it. But nevertheless, as he comes across the line, it is good enough for first. A 1:18.411, comfortably faster than AJ as it happens, and definitely better than what he managed in Q1. Still not really able to challenge what Vallu was able to do in that session, though. So it's looking okay right now for Dougie, and Simons comes through in the other Ferrari and makes it a Ferrari 1-2 for the time being at Monza. How much would the boys in red like that one? Cheguini Bambini up in the third, a 1:18.676. Go on, Chegwin. That's a nice lap from him. Here comes Turbo Tortoise round the final corner, one of the only drivers out here on the medium tyres. Iceman just went up into third. Turbo Tortoise across the line, only good enough for 10th. He's into Q3 for now, but only for now. He can go again on that same set of mediums if he would like. Calcifer is going to be starting a lap here on soft tires, and as long as he doesn't invalidate, he will almost certainly be heading up into the upper echelons of the order. He cut a lot in turn 1 for a man who cannot afford to invalidate there, but he didn't invalidate, and that's what matters. Luppy has invalidated his lap time. Will he be able to get across the line before qualifying actually comes to its conclusion? It's telling us it's come to its conclusion, and Luppy evidently agrees as he heads back into the pits, not able to set a lap time here in Q2, and out in 15th.
Yeah, my heart skipped a beat for a second when Calcifer took so much curb into turn 1. Vallu's just done an 18.02 to take that provisional top spot. Water's currently P7 on an 18.7, so he should be clear to make it into Q3. What can Calcifer do? He's at 3.8 seconds up currently as he throws the car into Amoscari. Clean again. Now all he has to do is not do what he did on the medium tires into Parabolica last time round.
Well, let's see whether he can avoid it this time around. You'd expect it. It's not a common mistake to make, and he'll be very, very wary of it. Still uses all the road through Parabolica. It's a bravely driven lap from Calcifer as it happens, and he gets the payback in the form of a 1:17.978. He throws down the gauntlet there. Vallu is not going to have it all his own way here and today. As Turbo Tortoise up towards the line again, but he's well down on his time. And with that, I think that is going to be it for qualifying here. Everyone back in the pits or cannot complete another lap. So it is Max, Turbo Tortoise, Oma B, Elon Tusk, and Luppy who fall out here in Q2. Oma B being the main scalp there.
Yeah, Oma B and Luppy as well. We usually expect Luppy to be alongside Cheguini Bambini, but he just couldn't get that lap in, and that's what happens when you wait so long to do your lap. You run the risk that if you do make a mistake, you don't have time to put on a new set of tires, and not even to come in the pits to go back out for another lap, but even to do a second lap on your set of tires.
Yeah, and just, you mentioned Cheguini Bambini. I want to mention it again. That's a great lap from him there to be well into Q3. And I don't think it's his first Q3 appearance of the season, though it might actually be. I can't quite remember. But nevertheless, definitely punching above where we would usually expect him to be. And he has come on leaps and bounds this season, I have to say. AJ down in 7th, not quite able to show the same level of pace he did in Q1, but nevertheless into Q3, and that's what really matters here. Maverick squeaking in by the skin of his teeth. He'll be very pleased with that, considering what he was saying about his abilities at Monza. Sepp as well has a big opportunity as a reserve driver here to show what he can do as he's made it into Q3, alongside Walter flying the flag for the Division 1 drivers.
Yeah, and Calcifer's put in that 79. I think he can go quicker, but I'm fairly certain that at the very least, Vallu and Walter have a lot more pace under their belts, and I would expect the same to be said for the likes of Dougie Falcons and Iceman. I think both of those two can get into the 17s as well. But it's crunch time now, Jacob, because we are into the third and final session of qualifying.
Yeah, and no one seems to be in an especial rush to leave the pit lane right now. All just sitting tight for the time being. They should have at least a couple of sets of fresh soft tires, the majority of them coming into this session. Looks like a couple of them are now looking to get out there. And that's going to be the racing point of Cheguini Bambini leading the way around. So he's feeling a bit hyped up after what we saw from him in Q2, and who can blame him as he heads out onto circuit.
Yeah, Cheguin has got really quick this season since switching from pad to wheel, and you can see exactly why. I mean, last season he was at the same kind of pace as the likes of Kenners, Elon, and Elon Tusk, but this season he's absolutely flying right in that top 10, and he's been consistently getting those results. 10th place in the championship as well, and you know, with Rainbow not racing, with a Luppy down the order, he could be seeing himself easily in PA at the end of the night.
Yeah, for sure. And another good points haul definitely looking his way. As several drivers out there on outlaps right now. We're just getting a nice little view of the pit lane for the time being. Here we go, as Iceman making his way past AJ on their respective outlaps. It will be Cheguin that will start the flying lap first of all these drivers, followed by Maverick. Vallu still just holding tight in the pits for now. Same for Calcifer and Dougie Falcons. The three top drivers in the standings, they always do this. They always tend to be some of the last ones to go out. Even in Q3, they wait. They let the other guys go out first, and then they go themselves. So sort of canny, there's a certain calmness, certain coolness. They know that they will be able to deliver the goods when it matters, or at least they trust themselves to do so. Here comes Chegwin then through the final corner and about to set the first flying lap of Q3.
Yeah, here we go then to start his lap, and let's see how much he dances with the track limits into turn one. We've seen Calcifer and Vallu really dancing with those track limits, and that's just how much practice they put in. Chegwin super late on the brakes, maybe misses the apex by a slight smidgen, but he still is able to take that curb very nicely. Curvy Grande, of course, completely flat, and it's super important to hold it tight all the way through. Don't even let it out. So, in my opinion, Chegwini has let it out a bit too much and loses maybe a couple of hundreds as he makes his way into the Roger chicane. Misses the apex ever so slightly into the left, gets the right-hander pretty well, all things considered, and now throw the car into the Lesmo, and it's all about just feeding the throttle and making sure you're right at that limit of your back end losing traction, and same in Lesmo too, as Chegwini now makes his way down the hill. Maverick's retired from the session, so he's going to be done and dusted from this qualifying session.
Yeah, looks like he's actually lost it on the exit of Della Roggia. He was not too far behind Chegwini, and he looks like he's in the wall, judging by the track map. So that is bad news for Maverick. And just as it was looking good, and he was finally into Q3 in this race, in a race where he wouldn't have thought that he was going to be, all of a sudden it's gone back down south again for the second of the AlphaTauri drivers. Here comes Chegwini up towards the line. It's a 1:18.967. Not as fast as he was able to do in Q2, but there were a couple of mistakes that we could pinpoint on that lap. So he will know that there is improvement in that one for him. Iceman invalidated and had to head back into the pit. Here comes Walter in the Renault as AJ goes fastest back into the 1:18.6, a 1:18.642. Walter looks okay through Parabolica here as he gets it all the way over to the right-hand side before coming up to the finish line, and it's only a 19 flat for the Renault driver, so he'll be hoping for better than that on his next set of tires. Dougie Falcons has just commenced his outlap here in the Ferrari.
Yeah, and at least in Walter's lap, he lost a couple of tenths in Parabolica, just skimmed the grass on the apex, and got a little bit unsettled, so he's definitely going to be looking to improve on that lap. Maybe track conditions aren't as quick as they were yesterday. 26-0 for Dougie in Sector 1. And again, it just looks a little bit off from him in the Roger chicane. It's so hard to get right, but when a driver takes it right, you can clearly see that they've absolutely nailed the chicane.
Indeed, yeah. Both Lesmos looked pretty darn good, though, from Dougie Falcons. He heads down the hill and back up it again towards Ascari. Let's see just how committed he is into this incredibly quick chicane. Maybe not as committed as some other drivers would be. Ran a little bit wide in the middle section. That compromises line into the left-hander at the end there. So maybe not taking quite so much speed through there as he would have liked to have been able to, as we enter now Parabolica, the final test of your metal around here. As that's Calcifer going to the top of the order with a 1:18.154. Can Dougie Falcons respond? No, not even close. It's a 1:19.1 instead. So not a good lap once again from the Ferrari driver. He just doesn't seem to have the consistency around here. And Vallu invalidating there around Lesmo 2.
Yeah, and he just lost it back in a tiny bit when he can caught the rear end. Just slid out a bit wide. 51.8 is a very quick sector too. So he's going to have to dive in the pits, and he'll have enough time to go back out for one final lap. But it seems that everyone seems to be struggling in the conditions. We were expecting that pole time to be in the 17s, but Calcifer only able to do an 18.1, and maybe in Q3 at the start is just a little bit too green, not enough a grip, or Calcifer and everyone else just trying to make sure they put down a banker lap first.
Yeah, it might just be sort of making sure, because it is so easy to invalidate around here, just making sure you have a decent lap on the board at least. AJ Sepp, that's about where we've seen them throughout these sessions. Again, Chegwini, I should say, you know, to see him up on an 18.9 is probably more realistic for where we'd expect him to be as well. I mean, that 18.6 was special in Q2, but this is sort of more like what we would usually expect from the Racing Point driver, though I hasten to add that he could well prove me wrong here. Iceman not taking any of that inside curb through turn 1, which you can cut so much, and I do think it gained you a significant amount of time doing that, so I'm not sure if that was intentional from Iceman or what, but nevertheless, as we head through towards De La Roggia, it's a 26.098, that's a decent Sector 1. Not great, but decent. That's sort of mid-18s pace, I think, but there's plenty more lap left to go as he heads through Lesmo 1. Doesn't use as much of the road on the exit there as certain other drivers would have done. Not the case, though, through Lesmo 2, where he seems to take the perfect line, and then up towards Ascari we go.
Yeah, here we go then into Ascari for Iceman. The lap so far hasn't looked the greatest. He'll have another lap that he can do after this. Put so much lock into the wheel on the run into Ascari, and as a result, he just runs wide on exit. You can't just slam the steering like that, Iceman. You should know better than that, and well, he's going to dive on into the pits and then come back out as Vallu. I'm not quite sure. He must be in low fuel mode, I think, as he comes into the pits.
Out of fuel there then. So that means it's just AJ out there on the circuit, currently, provisionally, sitting on the front row of the grid for this one. He would definitely take this in a heartbeat right now, but he'll be looking to improve on that 18.642. He still hasn't been able to match that initial lap he set in Q1. That was an 18.5. So, yeah, AJ... You know, he's been 18.5, 18.6, now 18.6 again. There's a lot of consistency there, but you'd expect someone to be able to improve as the sessions go on, at least by a couple of tenths with the track improvement that usually comes as well. Here we go then. This is his main opportunity to do so left in this qualifying session. As he heads down towards the Variante Rettifilio, turns 1 and 2. He cuts a lot of the inside, and it is too much of the inside. So all that hype for nothing. AJ, the only car out on circuit, we were relying on him to give us something to look at, and he goes and does that.
Well, we can still sit on board with him because he has to absolutely rush back into the pits. He'll have just enough time to put on a new set of soft tyres before starting a flying lap. He'll probably cross the line with about 10 seconds remaining, so AJ will be pushing on this in-lap.
I'd be surprised, though, if he has any more fresh sets of softs remaining, though. So he might just want to go around again on this same set of tyres. It was nice and early in the flying lap that he was able to back out of it, considering the fact that it was turn 1 that he invalidated. So maybe he can just go again on this set. That might be better if he doesn't have any fresh sets remaining, that is. Of course, that's a big if. He might well do, but this is already the second set of tyres he's used here in Q3. Cheguini then out here on an outlap alongside Simons a little bit further behind, and now... that is Walter also leaving the pits on the mini-map there, along with Dougie Falcon. So a fair few of the drivers coming out onto the track now, but a few still remaining in the pits. Calcifer, Sepp, Iceman all in the pits, and AJ has gone back into the pits. He'll be looking for another fresh set of softs then.
Yeah, and Vallu's in a very tricky situation as well. So is Iceman, as Cheguini has a bit of a moment of oversteer through Parabolica. That will cost him a bit of exit speed when he starts his lap, which is not what he wants. Nobody in the way, nobody coming out of the pits then as Cheguini starts his second hot lap here in Q3. 100 meters on the brake, super late, and he just skims the curve, kisses the curb through the Rettifilio chicane.
Yeah, I think he took exactly the wrong amount of curb to take through turn 1. You want to take more than that, because taking that amount that he took there actually unsettles the car, makes it sort of bounce when it lands just a little bit. The car didn't seem as unsettled as I was expecting through the rest of the Rettifilio. Getting a bit of gravel on the left-hand side of the tyres as well through the exit of Della Roggia there. So just sort of incremental gains that could be made if Cheguini was just able to clean up this lap a little bit. If he could go again with some flashbacks or something. But nevertheless, this is what he is going to have to live with here. And let's see what his delta time is going to be once he comes towards the end of Sector 2. No, he's backed out of it. So he will have one more attempt.
He was actually green through Sector 1. And I think the line he took through Roger was okay. You're supposed to go right over that curb because even though it shows that you're getting a bit of gravel on the tyre, it's you've got full traction and you can really plant the throttle. It's very strange because it looks like there is no space to gain any traction, but you can, and I think Cheguini got on the right amount because he seemed to have floored the throttle and got away with it.
Indeed, yeah. And Simons also has backed out of his flying lap attempt as well. So he'll be going again, setting himself up once more, psyching himself up once more as well in through Parabolica. And what's happened here with Vallu? There were yellow flags out on the circuit. I don't know if Vallu was causing those or not. His time seems roughly okay, roughly where I would expect it to be at this stage. He still seems to be pushing as well, although he probably wants to get back around at the very least anyway. A little bit of traffic up ahead, but I'll probably just be giving him a little bit of a slipstream on the straights, if anything. A 51.6 through Sector 2, and he invalidates on the entry to Ascari. So he needs to get round one more try for Vallu, sitting without a time here in Q3.
Yeah, 18 seconds left on the timing tower. I think there's more than that, otherwise Vallu would be pushing to start his new lap. And again, Vallu has shown that he has the pace, purple in Sector 2, but invalidating into Amoscari. And Iceman, what can he pull out? He's down into 4th gear through Lesmo 2. I know the top drivers like Vallu and Kalsper prefer to hold it in 5th through there, but Iceman preferring to have that little bit of extra oomph coming down the straight and into Ascari. Does he invalidate? No, and a much smoother run in using all of the curb beautifully does the Haas driver.
Judging by the time through Sector 2, though, I'm not sure this is going to be all that good of a lap from Iceman. Maybe not what he would have been hoping for. Let's see if he can claw back some of the time through Parabolica. Down into 4th he goes before going up through the gears once more. The corner really does reward you if you stamp down on the throttle, and across the line he comes with an 18.451. It is not bad, that's for sure. It's enough to put him into 2nd for now, just ahead of Walter, who was on 2nd for a brief moment there. Here comes Vallu, though, pushing once again in the AlphaTauri. He is pretty much the only driver out there who can realistically challenge Calcifer for pole position right now. Maybe just had to veer a little bit to get out of the way of Dougie Falcons, or to avoid Dougie Falcons, I should say. A 51.7 from Vallu through Sector 2. That's about 6/10 up on what Iceman was at that stage. That is AJ facing the wrong way on the exit there. Walter comes across the line and goes up in a 2nd, narrowly ahead of Iceman, but here comes Vallu through the final corner, the final test of the lap, and he looks to have passed it with flying colours as he heads up towards the line now. Is this going to be pole for the Finn? Yes, it is, with a 1:17.792. Can Calcifer respond in the Williams? He's coming through the final corner right now. The Estonian has backed out of it, so it is going to be Vallu on pole.
Yeah, Vallu nails it right on the final mark, and I tell you what, there was another 10th in that lap. I could see that Vallu was playing it very safe in that final part of the lap. Through Ascari, he was just so hesitant. Simons is on a lap. Dougie Falcons has invalidated. Can Simons jump higher up the order on a 19.3 before? And he does not. So in the final parts of the session, everyone really struggling.
Yeah, a lot of invalidations coming through when push came to shove. A lot of drivers weren't able to extract their maximum. Cheguini was able to improve a bit to a 1:18.7, but not able to get to the heights he saw in Q2. AJ not able to match his personal best in qualifying either. Walter didn't come that close to matching. He was 3/10 away from his pole time in Division 1 yesterday as well. So I think we've got to say there's probably a slower track than what we've seen in some of the other divisions. Maybe the conditions not perfect with that light cloud overhead. But nevertheless, Vallu really did extract the maximum out of that AlphaTauri in the end. It was really, really hairy for a long time there. He invalidated once, he invalidated twice, but he didn't invalidate the final time when it truly mattered and got that 1:17.792 on the board.
And don't forget as well, Jacob, this means that Walter's starting on the front row of the grid because Calcifer has that 5-place grid penalty from the incident in Q1 where apparently the game thought he was holding up / blocking another driver. So Walter will be starting on the front row on his debut Premier X race. Calcifer all the way down in 7th. So for Calcifer and Dougie Falcons, they're a lot further down the order than they would have wanted. In Calcifer, he doesn't have those medium tires that he arguably should be starting on because he had the pace in Q2 to have got through on those yellow wall tires.
Indeed. And you mentioned Dougie Falcons as well. The two Ferraris, they're going to be disappointed. They were, for a while, 1 and 2 in Q2. They both had a lot more pace in it. They were both capable of getting into the bottom half of the 118s at the very least, down into the 118.4s and below. But they were both above 119s come the end of Q3 there. So I don't think either of them will be happy at all with how that final part of qualifying went. And the Tifosi will be disappointed, considering that it looked quite promising for a while there for the Ferraris in their home turf at Monza, but not to be in qualifying at least, though we still have the race to come, of course. Plenty of opportunity for redemption.
And I've just got word from Calcifer. Apparently he had an issue with his wheel, and his wheel disconnected mid-lap, and he reckons that he had the pace to put it on pole. But either way, there's no point reminiscing about that now. Calcifer will just have to focus on the race at hand, and he's actually lining up alongside his championship rival, Dougie Falcons, and currently there's 24 points separating these two in the battle for P2 in the championship.
Yeah, and Iceman has a big opportunity here as well, currently sitting 4th in the championship, only 26 points behind Dougie Falcons, and starting in 3rd in this race with Dougie down in 8th, so Iceman does have a big opportunity. If he can get ahead of Walter come the end of this race as well, then, you know, this could be a really big result, actually, for our reigning champion, the Macedonian. who's, I think, only managed one podium thus far this season, so he'll be hoping to pick up a second here.
And don't forget as well, Owen AK and Peso having joined the lobby. They complete the grid P19 and 20. Peso starting on those medium tyres, and who knows what can happen. If there is a safety car, if anything of the sort does happen, it could bring him right back into contention. Turbo Tortoise, Omar B and Elon Tusk also starting on those mediums.
Yeah, interesting to see just how many of the drivers electing for those softs. Usually you would see none of the drivers outside of the top 10 going for the Redwalled soft tyres, but at Monza it's a little bit different. And Max, Luppy, Racebug, A2 UK, Chelarch, and ONAK all deciding that the softs will hold up well enough for them to start on those tyres at the beginning of this race. A lot of weaving going down the back straight there as the drivers will be lining up on the grid in just a moment's time for round 6 of Season 2 of Premier X here in Formula X Racing. Vallu on pole once again, but can he make it a 4th win in a row or not? Walter from Division 1 is his main challenger off the line at least. He'll be lining up on the first row in P2, and he has a big, big opportunity here.
Yeah, let's see if Vallu Walter can break the current Monza FXR curse, at least this season. Nobody in Division 2 or Division 1 won the race from the front row of the grid, and Vallu's pace surely will be enough to break that curse with his main rival, Calcifer, down in P7.
Here we go then, the number 9 AlphaTauri starting from the number 1 slot on the grid. As the lights come on, they go out, but we wait for them to go out for the drivers. And we are underway here at the Temple of Speed, and it's a great start for both of the drivers on the front row. I think Walter got a better one, if anything, but Vallu looks like he should just about be able to hold it around the outside into turn 1. Further behind, Iceman is in third, late on the brakes, might be looking to have a go at Walter, but cannot do it. Looks like a couple of drivers skipping over the chicane further back. There's already penalties for corner cutting coming through for a loss of the drivers here. Big collision in the background, and we've got a virtual safety car to start off this race. Dougie Falcons, though, up from 8th to 4th in the matter of 2 corners.
Yeah, and the cause of that incident was, I think, Turbo Tortoise. I saw a Red Bull really late running into the side of people into the first chicane. So I'm not sure if it was his fault, if he got hit from behind, but he definitely caused that main carnage through the first chicane. Chelarch got a penalty for contact with Peso. Peso now up to 15th, so Chelarch will have a penalty to serve, but the driver's bombing it down the hill as a VSC. It has now ended.
Jaguini Bambini managed to hold on to P5, but it looks like he skipped over the chicane, judging by the fact that he has a time penalty to his name as well as Simon's further behind. And it does look like Sepp was probably involved in that incident with Turbo Tortoise, maybe Maverick as well, as they've all fallen well down towards the back of the order. Good start from Max, who's just passed Calcifer for 8th there. The Renault driver doing a really, really nice job at the restart and at the initial start of this race as well. Omobi looks to be making moves further down, but Vallu coming across the line, already building that gap to 8 tenths of a second down to Walter.
I think Calcifer had wing damage. A2 is in the pits as well. And here comes AJ down the inside of the racing point.
Looks like it is going to be side by side on the exit here. Very, very tricky traction zone. They both manage to get the power down through those rear tires. Just about okay. But AJ does it better and moves back up ahead of Cheguini Bambini up in a 5th. Cheguini has something to say about it, though, as it looks like down towards Della Roggia they were going to continue their battle, but it looks like AJ has been able to hold on to that one. So it is Vallu, who is already outside of DRS range from Walter behind now, from Walter. And then Iceman, Dougie Falcons, who is sticking really close behind Iceman as well at this stage. So he is looking good.
And I think Calcifer's thrown his race away. He's pitted onto the medium tyres instead of the hards. The mediums will not last to the end of the race, but Luppy, can he find a way past down into Ascari? We have seen incidents here in Division 1, or pardon me, in Division 2, and Luppy will back out of the move.
Not Amor Scari this time around, as they do not make contact through there. And Luppy waits for another opportunity, and that might well be Parabolica, as he's very, very close under the rear wing of that Williams here. But he doesn't want to do it. There's not enough of a braking zone into Parabolica to really think about the move, and it's better to set yourself up for a go into turn 1 anyway, where there is plenty of a braking zone down there. So we'll see whether he's able to get close enough to the rear end of Racebug Unfortunately for Lappy, Racebug has a very handy toe from the medium tyre shod Elon Tusk up ahead as well. Elon's had a great start, especially considering he is on those yellow walled medium tyres, so he'll be very happy within 9th for now. They're already falling 2 seconds away from Max.
Yeah, speaking of 2 seconds, Water 2 seconds behind Vallu right now, coming under pressure from Iceman and Dougie Falcons, two of the big hitters here in Premier X. AJ not too far behind, and I wonder how Walter will play this. Will he just try to hold on to the position? Will he defend, or will he let these guys through?
And the interesting thing as well is that Walter is actually building that gap to Iceman further back. It almost teetered on a second there, although Iceman got a much better exit out of Lesmo too, so Walter must have had a bit of a moment there as that gap has closed down by about 0.4 of a second over the course of one straight. But nevertheless, Walter seems like he has the pace comfortably to keep Iceman and Dougie Falcons behind right now, which is not what they would like, and it's exactly what Vallu would like, as he is comfortably faster than Walter at this stage of the race. Turbo Tortoise will be throwing in the towel there, retiring in the pits. The Red Bulls were sitting 19th and 20th, with Own AK having got up to adventures of his own in his return to Premier X, so not so glorious for him, and not so glorious for Turbo Tortoise either, who now leaves the session.
Yeah, and now Max is on the tail of Simons. Could look for a move. Simons goes defensive. Max looks to the outside and late on the brakes. Max gets the job done.
Beautiful stuff. So much later on the brakes there on the outside by Max. And comfortably getting the move done over and above Simons there. Further back is battling between Omabi and Peso, who's had a decent start off the line. That's Maverick getting involved as well. He'll feel aggrieved after whatever happened to him on the opening lap. They almost thought about going 3 wide through Curva Grande there, but Maverick shutting the door on Peso and now looking to get past Omabi into De La Rogia, and he does so. Nice move from Maverick on his recovery back up the field. Up into 12th he goes. Further up the order, Cheguini Bambini's been able to get back past AJ as well for 5th.
Yeah, and don't forget as well, Maverick had to get that move done as quickly as possible because he had soft tyres in Omabi and Peso. They were on the medium tyres, so Maverick needs to pull away because come those final 10 laps, he will be coming under pressure from Omabi and Peso on the alternate strategy.
Yeah, and it seems like AJ is actually disconnected from the session in the Alfa Romeo after such a good qualifying for him and a decent start to the race as well. This is cruel, cruel luck indeed. A2 UK down in 18th and AJ out of the session for now at least. That is not the way that team would have wanted things to be going. That much is for certain. Here and now, though, we got Racebug very, very close behind Elon Tusk. Still a bit of a train forming behind the Canadian in the McLaren, but Racebug's going to make that one carriage lighter as he comfortably breezes past on the way down to turn 1. Doesn't have to make the move in the braking zone. And up into 9th he goes, looking to close down AJ Simons further up the order. Of course, AJ won't be so hard to close down. Sepp has retired well after the exit of Ascari, and actually brings out the virtual safety car. That looks like it's damage, but he got a long way out of the exit of Ascari before finally succumbing. There it is. You see him in the wall there briefly. And Sepp, the reserve driver in the Mercedes, after 2 incidents, out of the race.
Yeah, that's just a tank slapper, and Sepp has tried to control it with a car slinging one way and the other way before finally smashing into the barriers. And another virtual safety car. Calcifer needs a full safety car right now because he's 26 seconds behind Chell Archer's. DRS has been enabled. We are back to racing as Iceman has to defend from Dougie Falcons, who actually has he just passed him for position.
He's still holding Dougie Falcons behind for now, but Dougie's getting closer and closer to the rear end, giving him something to think about there into Ascari, but once again didn't become Kiscari that time around. As further down the order, AJ still falling away. Luppy's been able to get past Elon Tusk on that little restart there as well. So good news for him. 2.3 seconds between Max and Cheguini Bambini, both of those drivers on great form in this race thus far. Here comes Dougie Falcons, though, up the inside of Iceman. Iceman's looking to take Walter as well. They're going to be 3 wide into turn 1 here, and it is so tight. Walter backs out of it. Very, very sensible driving indeed. And Iceman is the one who exits the corner ahead of Dougie Falcons there. Walter losing 2 positions in one corner, and has Cheguini all over his rear wing as well, but he might be looking to move up instead of down, as he is close behind Dougie Falcons into De La Rogia, but not close enough to contemplate the move as Racebug gets past the stricken car of AJ that the AI is currently in control of.
Yeah, and, well, I think Walter saw one car coming up his inside and thought, okay, I'll try to hold it around the outside, maybe look for the switchback, but 2 cars on his inside, you're never going to hold it 3 abreast through the Rettifilio chicane, even if you're super nice when it comes to giving room, and Walter was the one who had to play chicken and back out of the attempted pass.
Yeah, and you know what? Cheguini Bambini is keeping pace with these guys right now. This is podium pace right here. Iceman, Dougie Falcons, Walter, Cheguini, they're all sticking well within a train of one another, dropping Max a little bit, but Max is actually getting a bit closer to their rear end after all that battling. So these guys losing a bit of time, definitely losing a lot of time to Vallu out at the front. 6 seconds is the lead for the Finnish driver right now. He is absolutely running away with this one at this stage of the race. And I think I might have just discovered why Cheguini has been sticking with these guys, as he's got 0% left in his battery charge. But here comes Dougie Falcons once again having a go at Iceman. No niceties between these two in this race. It is wall-to-wall battling here. And Iceman still remaining ahead, doing a great job of frustrating the Ferrari behind.
Yeah, and Walter's just waiting for an opportunity. You've seen his ERS battery's got about 60% remaining, and now Cheguini dropping back, and Max is in the battle, and Max is going to have a look around the outside, coming into the Roger chicane, and he's pulled off the move as Cheguini backs on out.
Yeah, Cheguini, nothing left in the tank, as I mentioned, in terms of his ERS charge, and as a result, could not hold back the Renault. And a Renault 4 and 5 right now would be a great result for the team, which is currently bottom of the constructors' standings. Here comes Dougie Falcons yet again on Iceman, as they head down the hill, back up the hill, into Ascari. This time, surely he's done it. Yes, he has. The Ferrari moves up in a second. Iceman couldn't hold back the tide forever.
Yeah, but Dougie, he's got no ERS remaining, and he's going to be a sitting duck on the start-finish straight to Iceman, 9%. And Iceman, what does he have? Walter's got 30-something, and so has Iceman. So Iceman will surely get past, even if he uses about 15% ERS. There you go, Walter, 80% ERS. He's just watching this unfold, as that is Cheguini coming into this very early. Surely a set of hard tires going onto the racing point.
Yeah, definitely going to be trying to get to the end if he does go on those hard tires there. Iceman thought about it into turn 1, but with those 2 Renaults all over his rear wing, he's got to be careful. He's got to make sure that any move he makes sticks right there and then. Otherwise, he gives the opportunity for those 2 Renaults to double team him and both find their way past. Chelarch picking up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, down in 14th at the moment, behind the medium tire runners, which is not where he would like to be. Interestingly, Elon Tusk has really fallen down through the field, sunk without a trace a little bit there. I wonder if he's picked up any front wing damage or what, but he was comfortably ahead of the other medium tire runners. But ever since that second restart, that second virtual safety car, as he loses another position to Chelarch there, he has just been falling without a trace. Into 14th he goes.
That was a Williams. That was Racebug getting really wide through Lesmo too. Sorry to cut across you. I thought he would have ended in the wall, but he's going to lose 2 positions, one to Simoms and the other to Luppy.
Yeah, this is the sort of secondary battle going on here. Not able to keep the pace of the guys in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but 6th, 7th, and 8th, Simoms, Luppy, Racebug going wheel to wheel to wheel to wheel throughout this race thus far. As AJ actually has fallen a bit further down than where he was as well. Peso and Oma B both ahead of him, so he must have made some kind of mistake, I think.
Elon Tusk coming back at Chelarch actually right now. That's down into Parabolica, I think. They're pretty much nose to tail, and Chelarch has managed to hold on to the position. But we're at the point now where we're going to be getting to the crossover. The mediums will be quicker than those soft tires, and you can see Peso 2 seconds behind Maverick. Keep an eye on that gap, because Peso and Oma B working together, trying to catch her back up to the Alfa Romeo, and then the Williams of Racebug 4 seconds ahead.
Yeah, Maverick's a bit of a ship without a rudder in terms of a battle as well, because he has no slipstream, no DRS from any cars ahead, 4.3 seconds ahead of him. So if Peso and Oma B do cruise up to the back, then they're going to cruise straight on past as well, you'd have to expect. Maverick might well be coming into the pits soon, though. Cheguini already pitted a couple of laps ago now. AJ's coming to the pits for a set of mediums. They're going to try and stretch those to the end in the Alfa Romeo, going a different way to the racing point of Cheguini Bambini. Yellows in Sector 1, not sure what that was about, but looks like whoever it was has got going once again. 9.4 is now the gap from Vallu to Dougie Falcons. Vallu putting on an absolute clinic here in Monza and just showing what you can do. If you can break the DRS train to the cars behind, you can just drive away with it. And very, very impressive stuff once again from the Finn.
Yeah, don't forget, Calcifer's been mighty impressive. He was 25 seconds behind Elon Tusk because Iceman pits on lap 10. But Calcifer was 25 seconds behind Elon Chelarch in that group, and he is now 12 seconds behind. He's caught about 13 seconds in the space of 7-8 laps. He's absolutely flying.
Walter almost losing the car there through the Rettifilio after clunking over the curb in the first part. Had a big wag of the tail through the second part there. Those softs starting to lose some of their handle on the circuit that they had so well at the beginning of this race. And the Renault driver finding that out to his cost there, though he hasn't lost too much time. Still within DRS range of Dougie Falcons. Hasn't allowed Max to fly past him either. So not too much harm done in the end. Cheguini's in the pits again. That's not good news.
He was the one who caused the yellow flag. He's the one who spun coming out of turn 2, I think. That's why he was so far behind the likes of Cheloch and Pesso, who he had initially come out behind. And there you can see new front wing going on, new set of mediums. Cheguini will be going to the end from here.
That is so sad to see that. Both him and AJ, real star performers in qualifying. At least Max is still right up there, though, for the unexpected drivers towards the front of the order. Currently sitting in 4th, well within DRS range of his teammate. Doesn't want to be harassing him too much. And he's going to be hoping that Walter comes into the pits at the end of this lap. If not, he's got to go in himself, because these soft tires are getting very second-hand right now, and they do not want to pit on the same lap. There you saw Max thinking about going into the pits, but backing out of it at the last second as he saw his teammate going in. Iceman just picked up a 3-second time penalty, joining the illustrious ranks of those with penalties. Here is our race leader, Vallu, who's already come into the pits, and he'll be back out on a set of mediums.
He's going to come out right in this battle between Omar B and Pesso, and on the same compound of tires. So he's actually going to lose, I think, a little bit of time. Can he get ahead of the McLaren into turn 1? And the answer is no. He needs to use everything on the exit of the Rettifilio chicane to get past, and I think that's exactly what he's doing now.
Yeah, should be able to sweep around the outside with ease there on Pesso. Pesso realizes that's not his fight to take at this stage of the race. Maybe if he sticks close enough behind Vallu, though, he can hope to nab a position off Omar B when Vallu forces his way past the Mercedes, as is an inevitability at this stage of the race. Dougie Falcons is now building that gap to Max a little bit now that Max has fallen outside of that DRS range, with his teammate having come into the pits, and Max surely will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap as well. Here comes Vallu on Omar B, getting these back markers, or they're not even back markers, middle markers, dispatched nicely here on his run back up towards the very front of the field.
Yeah, now he's got Maverick right ahead, and he's going to get past him probably, before he even crossed the start-finish line with his fresher mediums. Something else to remember, Kalsper, he's within 2 seconds of Walter, and he's closing in onto Walter, who's on the hard tires. So Walter's opted for the white-walled hard compound of tires, whereas the likes of Vallu and Lappi have opted for the mediums as Maverick dives on into the pits and picks up a 5-second time penalty for speeding as well.
Ugh, that is not what he needed, to be honest, and big shame for him. It's been a big yo-yo of emotions this race weekend thus far for Maverick, as Dougie Falcons is in the pits along with Max and Racebug. Almost everyone who started the race on softs has now come out on into the pit lane and out onto medium tires. Walter looks to have been able to get the undercut there or hold the position away from Max. Actually, Max forced over the curb by his teammate and then forced out wide on the exit of turn 2 as well. That was not playing nice between the teammates there. Walter will be facing a very angry Max after this one, no doubt about that. Calcifer sweeping around the outside, taking advantage of the German's misfortune. Into De La Roggia we go, and Max wants to fight back with it, but Calcifer holds on to the position. And that is not what Max needs either. With 9-lap fresher medium tires, even if Calcifer tends to be the faster driver, Max will not want to be held up at any point here.
And I do wonder how much tire saving is Calcifer doing, as Iceman looking for the move on Elon Tusk. Around the outside into Ascari, and Elon sensibly slots him behind.
Yep, nice and easy move there for Iceman. His teammate is the next one up the road, but I expect Cheloch to come into the pits at the end of this lap and into the Haas pit box, being the final driver who started on the softs to get rid of that set of tires. Vallu is once again out at the very front of the order with Omar B and Peso in 2nd and 3rd for now. And they are still continuing, of course, on their medium tires. Cheloch 4th, Iceman 5th from Elon Tusk 6th. Cheloch into the pits now will be sinking down the order as well. And it's interesting to note, actually, how much of an undercut Iceman was able to pull off, as here comes Dougie Falcons getting past Elon Tusk into turn 1. He needed to do that to stay within range of the Haas driver up ahead. These two in a battle over 2nd in this race.
Yeah, and Iceman, I'm sure, is going to be using all of his ERS right now to try to find that extra 10th to be a 2nd ahead. And you can see the gap has increased from 9/10 of a second to practically a 2nd. Iceman, he's got so much ERS. Watch him use it on the exit of this chicane. And apparently he doesn't want to. He's already a second ahead of Dougie, so he does not need to. And now it's just to get your head down and make sure that Dougie doesn't get back within a second. And right as they say that, Dougie gets within a second. Iceman, you should have used your ERS on the exit of the Roger chicane.
Indeed, he should have. And now with that DRS, Dougie's probably going to stick within that range for the time being. Iceman definitely missing a trick there, missing an opportunity, as you mentioned. Meanwhile, here is Calcifer ahead of Walter. So 10-lap old medium tyres. Calcifer still able to get past the fresh, hard tyres of Walter, who was one of the fastest qualifiers in this race, so he doesn't lack for raw pace around here either. The decision to go onto the hards is really an odd one from Walter when everyone else has pretty much gone for the mediums, who pitted in and around the same time as the Renault driver. So, and it's just going to make it that much more annoying as well for Max that his teammate fought him so hard, got him a 3-second time penalty, forced him off the road in turn 2 as well.
Dougie Falcon's looking for a move on Iceman. He's actually alongside into turn 1, side by side right now. Dougie around the outside will make the move work in Iceman. He just needed to use that ERS on the exit of the Roger chicane. By the way, Dougie is through 2-lap fresher mediums as well. And in the long run, the Ferrari driver has the advantage.
Here comes Iceman once again. Does he make the move into Della Roggia? No, he does not. Further back, Elon Tusk is being sifted down through the field by Calcifer and Walter. Max once again finding himself with the short end of the stick there, stuck behind the McLaren for a couple more corners before he will inevitably get past soon.
Yeah, and going back to what I was saying, I wonder how much tyre saving Calcifer is doing, because those are 11-lap older mediums, and after about 17 laps, they are going to be pretty much 70% tyre wear, maybe 60% if he's been really kind to them. So Calcifer, 4.6 seconds behind Iceman and Dougie Falcons. He needs something, maybe a late VSC so he can pit for softs and only lose about 15 seconds in the pits instead of about 24.
Indeed, yeah, but he will be very, very fast at the end of the race, of course, on those soft tyres as well, as Simons also manages to get past Elon Tusk. Simons is actually slowly creeping up to the rear end of the two Renaults as well. He was a fair few seconds, about 3 seconds or so behind them before everyone came into the pits, so decent recovery there from the Ferrari. Iceman still close behind his teammate in the form of Dougie Falcon, Simons' teammate, that is, but still, Iceman cannot make the move, and as long as he sticks with Dougie, though, that's all he needs to do until the dying stages of this race. But they don't have to worry too much about the cars behind now. They've built a big gap to Calcifer, Walter, and Max. And they don't have to worry about Vallu ahead because he has definitely gone well over the hill by now.
And I'm just looking at Omar B and Peso because they're going to be pitting maybe at the end of this lap or the next lap for medium. Oh, Walter! He's run a little bit wide. That's front wing damage as well. And Walter's race has gone down the gutter after such a strong and solid opening half of the race.
The pressure got to him there. The decision to go onto the hards doesn't seem to have been the right one, and now he's made the mistake on the exit of Della Roggia as well. Here comes Simons flying past him. It's an inevitability, really, with that level of front wing damage and with the gravel on his tyres as well that he would have had there. Iceman still close behind Dougie Falcons for 4th and 5th, but he's not going to make the move into Parabolica. He'll have to just stick behind and wait for the DRS. Is he going to be close enough to think about it into turn 1? And even if he is, does he want to, or does he just want to stick behind for now? He doesn't need to risk anything quite yet.
And Omar B and Perso have used this opportunity to dive on into the pits. Walter should pit as well for some softer tyres. And where does Peso and Omar B come out relative to everyone else? They're falling all the way down to the back of the order. And Walter, he's going to have to come into the pits. And, well, he's in a very tricky position, and it seems he doesn't even have any fresh softs available either. He's used them all in qualifying, which is why he's had to put on the yellow wall tyres.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have thought he'd still have a decent enough set of softs to get to the end here, but no, it's going to be the mediums for Walter once again, going a bit conservative on the tyre strategy, as he did in the opening stint. Or in the opening pit stop, I should say. That's a McLaren that's not on the right part of the road there, as Elon Tusk cuts Della Roggia, I believe that was, yep. And Lappi is able to take advantage as well. So not only does Elon Tusk pick up a time penalty for it, he loses the position to the Dutchman, who moves up into 8th. Lappi was actually battling with Simons quite a lot towards the beginning of this race. But I don't know if he had a 5-second time penalty in the pits or what, but he's fallen well behind the Ferrari driver at this stage. And Racebug also up there in 7th. He's doing a quietly very solid job in this race.
Yeah, I think Elon Tusk can get that time penalty removed because he was ahead of Lappi. He cut the corner. He let Lappi through. So that's clearly an issue with the game right there. And I would be surprised if the stewards at the end don't feel the same way and remove that 3-second time penalty. Calcifer right now 4.8 seconds behind Iceman. He's been maintaining the gap to the P2 and P3 drivers, but he's been unable to close in, and Max is just sticking within that 1 second zone. So once we get to those final 5 laps or so, Calcifer's tires are going to be dead, and Max will really start to put pressure on the Estonian.
Elon coming into the pits 1 lap after his teammate. Peso and Elon both starting on those medium tyres now, going on to the softs. They should be fast to the end of this race now, but Elon is falling a long way down the order with this pit stop behind both of the Alfa Romeos, who are now in 13th and 14th. AJ slightly ahead of A2 UK, but with fresher, softer tyres, we should expect to see him getting further and further away from his teammate. Chelarch doing a decent job, actually, in 12th right now in the Haas with those medium tyres. Peso in 11th. Watch him and Oma B towards the end of this race. They're going to have a lot of pace, as Chelarch, as soon as I compliment him there, picks up another 3-second time penalty. And that's not going to help him when he comes towards the checkered flag, particularly with AJ behind him without any penalties to his name at this stage. Right now, though, it's Vallu from Dougie Falcons, from Iceman from Calcifer, although Calcifer still will almost certainly have to pit once more in this race, and surely he'll want to do it sooner rather than later to give himself enough time on those soft tyres to really gun it towards the end. He's not pitting this lap, though. Max still within DRS range as well.
I think Calcifer is going to the end. Water's actually on the back of Elon Tusk right now. They're making their way into Amoscari, and Water on the fresh mediums, Elon Tusk on a fresh soft, but Water will be on a charge as Vallu picks up his first time penalty of the race. But I think Calcifer, from the moment he put on mediums, I think he's just wanted to go to the end or wait until a potential safety car before pitting again. We'll have to see how it all pans out, but it was interesting for Calcifer to put on those mediums when he did pit at the end of lap 1. Elon Tusk within a second of A2 UK. Has he got DRS? And is that why he's staying ahead of Water, so far ahead of Water? Well, that DRS flap is not open, so Water just too far behind to have a look into T1.
Yeah, I suspect a bit of a difference in the ERS deployment as well down that straight. Maybe there's more use of the overtake button from Elon. Does have those fresher tyres as well, softer tyres, I should say. They are slightly fresher, but moreover, they are softer. Right here and now, though, it's Iceman close behind Dougie Falcons. 2 laps more elderly are his tyres, but he's definitely closer than he has been for the last few laps behind the rear wing of that Ferrari. And into turn 1, he's going to have a golden opportunity to reclaim second, but he actually had a really poor run of it through Parabolica relative to Dougie Falcons. Was too close maybe to the rear wing, got a bit of dirty air. Max has passed Calcifer behind, who has now come into the pits to get rid of those medium tyres. Would have been very, very impressive if he could stretch those to the end, but he cannot do so. AJ back in the race. Of course, I'd forgotten that was actually his AI car circulating down there in 13th, and still ahead of his teammate despite that fact. So A2 UK not having the race of his career, that is for sure. With AJ coming back, maybe he can salvage one more position or so with mediums to the end of this race.
Yeah, and Water and Elon are battling hard for position with A2 UK. The 4 of them are really close together. You can see them in your corner of your shot as Calcifer rejoins the track in P11. Water ahead of Elon, who's on the inside. Water switches over to the outside. Can he hold on to the position? Elon's late on the brakes. There's contact, and I think that's Elon's own fault. He runs into the side of Water, and he's off into the gravel. Oh no, he managed to hold it, and he'll slot in right behind A2 UK.
Yeah, thankfully, there's a lot of road on the right-hand side where he had that moment of oversteer, so he was able to just about keep it on the black stuff there, but definitely not the way he would have envisaged that overtaking opportunity going in a perfect world. Iceman, here he is ahead of Dougie Falcons and in second for now. Does have those penalties, of course, and that is going to harm him when they come up towards the finish line unless Dougie picks up some penalties of his own. But Iceman would still like to win this one on track. It's very unlikely, given how close these two have been throughout this whole race. I don't think Iceman's going to be able to gap him enough for that penalty to be, cancelled out by the gap between them on the road. So he is going to have to try and hope, or maybe even force Dougie into a mistake to pick up a penalty of his own.
Yeah, and I've just seen from Twitch chat, Den Benny, who I think usually race engineers for Water, saying that he put on the hards accidentally. He wanted to go for the mediums, and well, after that mistake as well, which saw him in the wall, that is his race done and dusted. And I think Water and Calcifer, especially both those two, could really, really use a safety car as Maverick now coming under pressure from Peso, the man who led the D1 championship for so long. Can Peso find a way through?
Looks like not quite yet. Further back down as well. Peso's teammate Elon Touch is getting mud in that big fight.
Who is that? That was AJ. AJ's made contact, and I think that
Yeah.
might have been with Elon Tusk. Elon Tusk and A2 dropping down the order. So there's a safety car. I talked about how a couple of drivers really needed it, and they will get it. Vallu's going to dive into the pits. Now, Calcifer's on fresh soft, and the likes of Iceman, Dougie Falcons, and Max will all have to pit. And we would assume they'll come out not too far ahead of Calcifer. Walter can use his opportunity to pit for some soft tires as well.
Let's see where Vallu... I think Vallu is going to come out of the pit still ahead of the rest of the field, so that's good news for him. Very smart reactions for him to pit there. Could have just held on, but knew he had the gap to come into the pits. Omar B, is he going to head into the pits as well? Yes, he is. Interestingly enough, he was on 3-lap-old soft tires. I'd have expected him to take that sort of glut of track position that he could have taken there, but he heads into the pits nevertheless. Calcifer is probably going to be a beneficiary here with his fresh soft tires. Not much point in him coming into the pits, and he does indeed stay out there. So he's going to gain a lot of those positions.
Does he get ahead of the Renault?
Could have been Omar B's. He's just about, by the look of it, going to get ahead of Max there. And they were battling a little while earlier, so Max will not be pleased to see Calcifer ahead of him. He does have slightly fresher tires to the end of this race, of course. Walter rolling the dice, staying out there on his 4-lap-old mediums. He's surely going to be a sitting duck when we get to the restart.
I think that's a very, very poor decision from Walter to stay out on those mediums. Again, even if he's got some soft tires that he did a qualifying run on, they'll be on about maybe 6-7% tire wear. Just put them on. I think Peso and... Peso and Omar B, I think they could have stayed out on their 2-3-lap-old soft tires. I mean, they would have been a fair bit higher up the order, and if they could have just stuck in the DRS of the guys ahead, I think they would have been able to defend their positions fairly well. But AJ on old soft tires, which means that he has not been able to regain control of his car and pit for new soft, so he's going to drop down the order. And this is not good news for him. And let's see what Walter can do on those mediums as well. But Calcifer, I think he's got the pace to get past Dougie Falcons and Iceman, but by the time he does, I think Vallu will be a fair bit up the road.
We'll have to wait and see whether that'll be the case. And of course, yeah, with the deficit in terms of their tires as well, it's not going to help him. Elon Tusk has retired in the pits. So, he had just pit onto fresh softs. He was involved in that incident that happened there. He's decided he's had enough and he's out of this one. So he will not be getting into the checkered flag here and now. And will be not classified in 18th, of course, but sitting there in 18th on the timing tower. Interestingly, it was actually, there was that 4-way battle that was going on. It was 3 of them that seemed to fell by the wayside that caused the safety car, but Walter let clear of them. So evidently he managed to keep his head above water, while the others all sort of drowned on the exit of turn 2 there. So good stuff from him there, but he might well find himself very dangerously treading water on these medium tires, if not sinking without a trace once this safety car comes back in. AJ's pitting a lap late to get onto fresh soft tires, so he might fall right down towards the bottom of the order. Probably just has about enough to stick ahead of Owen AK, who was so far off the back of the field after this race. Had definitely not gone his way, but he has an opportunity now at least to start racing with the rest of the field once again, and he might actually be able to get AJ on the pit exit.
And Sam Lipper has just posted something very important in the Twitch chat that I'm surprised we haven't actually realized. Dougie Falcons and Calcifer, they don't have a time penalties. Vallu and Iceman do. I'm not sure how many time penalties they have, but if Calcifer and Dougie Falcons work together, they could find themselves at first and second come at the end of the race.
3 seconds apiece for Vallu and Iceman. Vallu, with the pace he's shown, if he can break DRS, I still back him to build that gap to the rest of them. But that's a big if.
Yeah, so both Williams drivers without any time penalties. I stand by. If Calcifer can get ahead of Dougie Falcons and Iceman, I do not think Vallu will pull away that far from him. I think he'll be able to stick with Vallu, at least stay within those 3 seconds. Safety car, will it be a late safety car dive? It happened in Division 1 yesterday. It came through Parabolica and then just dived on into the pits with the announcement coming at the same time. But no, the safety car will stay out one more lap at the very least.
Yeah, almost certainly will just be that one more lap. And yeah, I think Calcifer on raw pace, he would be able to stick within the 3 seconds of Vallu, but there are 2 cars and 2 very competent cars between the 2 of them as well. So it's not going to be easy at all for Calcifer. Even if they all come across the line more or less nose to tail, there's still going to be at least a second and a half between Vallu and Calcifer, and probably more than that if we have sort of reasonable gaps between those four. So it is a big ask for him to take the win from here. Dougie is in a slightly better position right now, but maybe doesn't have the raw speed of Calcifer at this circuit. But definitely this safety car is throwing the cat amongst the pigeons. Vallu looked like he was cruising to what was going to be his 4th victory in a row, I believe his 5th of the season. But it's not going to be so easy now.
Something to remember is that run coming out of Parabolica to turn 1 is very, very long. And Iceman will be using all of that ERS. He'll have the slipstream as well, and he could get alongside Vallu into turn 1. And if he does that, that might be enough to throw Vallu down one position and bring Calcifer right on into the mix. So Iceman, if he doesn't get caught napping, he might turn this race on its head.
The whole field, bar Walter, on fresh softs. Calcifer with the least fresh softs, with 3 laps of age on them, but that's just hardly going to make much of a difference considering the majority of that time was spent behind the safety car as well. Safety car will be in this lap as they're heading now up towards Parabolica. Vallu will take control of the field, keeping the temperature in those tires. Everyone will have fully recharged batteries as well. Hopefully he doesn't start braking, slowing down on this straight. It's had some issues, actually, safety car restarts at this circuit a couple of times in history. The year 2000, I think Jenson Button actually crashed out from behind the safety car. Maybe it was 2002. But either way, here we go then through the final corner. And it looks like, actually, he's dropped the hammer. Oh, no, he backs out of it there. He didn't build up too much time. He's waiting so much time here, but now he has to go for it. And Iceman actually has been caught up by Dougie Falcons, potentially. Calcifer has the worst restart of the front 4 and actually is under pressure from Max behind. Here comes Iceman, though, in second. He'll hold on to second. And that's not going to be Dougie Falcons braking quite late enough. Calcifer can't do it and has to hold off Max as well with the other hand, but he's able to do so for now. But Vallu, this is exactly the way the restart wanted to go for him. Simons looks to be battling with Omar B further back. Peso and Walter are fighting Maverick, falling down the order a little bit as well in the battle with A2 UK. How many times have we seen them together on track? But out at the front, it is Vallu from Iceman, but Iceman critically still within DRS range for now.
Yeah, and you can see Vallu's absolutely pulled the pin 8/10 ahead. And, well, on the exit of Ascari, he'll probably be a second up. Rayberger picks up a time penalty, and that could be disaster for Williams. Well, not disaster, but one less position that they'll
look
be
at Dougie.
finding.
Ooh. So close behind Iceman there was Dougie Falcons. It was briefly less than 1/10 of a second on the way up to Ascari, but he didn't make the move in the braking zone. He's waiting behind, waiting patiently, but he can't afford to be that patient because look, Vallu, he's almost getting away from them. 9/10 of a second between them right now, although we're about to enter the straight with the DRS, so that should mitigate that gap just
DRS
a little bit.
Yeah, Jacob,
So
we've got another
close to
lap.
breaking it. That's a great point as well. He's not going to have DRS, and he's broken it already. So there goes Vallu out at the front. He has every chance to win this race at this stage. Dougie Falcons will be desperate to get past Iceman right now, but he can't do it into turn 1.
Yeah, and Calcifer, he's just got to slot in behind, and it's going to be so difficult for Calcifer to find a way past Dougie or Iceman because Dougie's got DRS on Iceman, so Calcifer won't have the overspeed on the Ferrari. Vallu has absolutely checked out 2 seconds ahead. He surely will find that 3-second advantage that he desperately needs over the Ferrari and the Williams driver. Calcifer close to Dougie through the Roger chicane, but just can't find a way through. He needs to get the move done before DRS is enabled. He needs to find the run out of some corner. There's a yellow flag. Omar B dropping down the order. So that is disaster for the Mercedes driver. Both Mercedes 19th and 17th after Sepp retired earlier on in the race.
Yeah, Omar was in a battle with Peso. They've been tooth and nail ever since the restart there after the safety car. And Omar B seems to have come off worse in the end through the Lesmos and falls well down towards the back of the order. Cheguini, Bambini and Walter both picking up time penalties. Walter was penaltyless until that moment. He's doing a good job, by the way, of holding on those medium tyres for the time being. Omar B picked up a 3-second time penalty in his frustration, no doubt, of having fallen down towards the back of the order. It is 2.5 seconds now between Vallu and Iceman. Vallu's gets the fastest lap. Yet again, DRS is enabled, but Dougie Falcons isn't even close enough to make a move on Iceman, the Macedonian, comfortably in second for now. And here comes Calcifer up the inside. It's the outside of 2. Dougie gives him the space there, but gets the slightly better traction on the exit, if anything. Through Curva Grande, they're going to go now. They're going to be side by side. It'll be the inside line for the De La Rogia chicane that Dougie Falcons will have the advantage of, but will he even be alongside in the braking zone? Yes, just about, as they go side by side through there, and around the outside he sweeps, and then there's contact between Max and Dougie Falcons as Dougie almost loses it, pushes Max into the gravel, and this is going to give the opportunity to race bug as well. Who's that flying off? It's Max into the wall, and it's a disaster for Max.
Yeah, so Max and Racebug, after Max came up alongside Dougie, he had to back out and then was alongside Racebug, and that saw the two tangle, which is what caused Max to fly into the barriers. I think Dougie was a bit aggressive, squeezing Calcifer, and then Calcifer turned across her Dougie a little bit. Racebug gets his front end chopped off. Peso picks up a time penalty, so more disaster for Racebug. He picked up that time penalty, and now he's lost a whole chunk of his front wing, which I presume is from contact with Max. So 4 fighting down into Parabolica.
This is incredible. Max retires from the session. He's lost it through the Lesmos. I think he's actually just retired the car there, but they're side by side. It's Simons Walter falling down the order, desperately trying to battle on those mediums, but look at them. They're just swamping him all over. Here they come. This is the most incredible thing I have seen here at Monza, and right now they're going down the main stretches only for the middle of the points, but nevertheless, this battling is frenetic, and that is A2 UK of all people, with a late surge in this race. He has been nowhere this weekend, but here he goes up into 8th, and he might well look to take Racebug as well, who might have a little bit of front wing damage from that incident with Luppy just a lap or so ago. Luppy has been able to gap the rest of these guys. Now, of course, there's still penalties to work out between all these drivers as well, but the battling on track is absolutely frantic right now.
Yeah, AJ, the only one in the top 10 aside from Calcifer and Dougie Falcons who doesn't have a time penalty, so he's going to jump up probably 4 or 5 positions come the end of the race. He's having a look down into Lesmo 2 as well. Will he pull it off down the inside of the Ferrari? And he gets the job to stick as well.
What did I tell you before the race about Lesmo 2? There is the move from AJ, and Maverick follows through as well. Simons will be looking to battle that one back. It's not gone the way he would have liked this race.
Oh, Simon really had to back out on Maverick, who went down the inside. That could have been disaster, as AJ has to defend her from Chellard down into Parabolica. Vallu takes the win. Iceman will take P2. Calcifer will jump ahead after time penalty. It's a great drive from the Estonian. Dougie Falcons in a P4. Peso will take P5. Luppy P6. And here's the battle for P6.
It's Racebug who just gets it across the line, but look who it is in 7th. It's Owen AK. He kept it clean. He was last throughout the whole of this race, and he's finished 7th by avoiding the penalties. Owen AK. Oh my goodness, he will be chuffed to bits with that one. Luppy in 6th. Peso, a great race from him as well, from the very back of the grid to finish in 5th. But I was not expecting to see Owen up there in 7th come the checkered flag, I tell you what.
That was incredible. That was absolute chaos. Peso gets driver of the day. And speaking of driver of the day, Jacob, who on earth do we give it to? Peso from the back of the grid. Owen AK P7, keeping it consistent. Calcifer, after, a five-place grid penalty he didn't deserve, having to hit on the opening lap of the race to come back like that. I mean, I just don't know. Who do you give driver of the day to here, Jacob?
If this race was 25 laps long, there would only be one driver of the day in my mind, and that would be Max. However,
yes,
he lost it all at the very, very end there. He retired from the race. How can you give it to someone who DNFs in the end? He's got to be a contender even now, though. Luppy had quietly a very good race, by the way, in the Racing Points. A great job to him. Dougie Falcons did really, really well. In terms of off the line, he gained a lot of positions, but he faded right at the very end there in that battle with the rest of them. It's such a hard call. I mean, Vallu also has to stick out. He was 19 seconds ahead of them before the safety car.
I know, for me, it's Calcifer, Peso, or Owen. I think, to be honest, I actually think, for me, it might go to Peso instead of Calcifer or Vallu, because...
I think part of the issue, though, as well, with Calcifer and Peso is they benefited so much from the safety car. They did a good job to be in that position. Peso was going to have a really good run on the soft tires with everyone else on used mediums in that final stint. But it's so hard to evaluate the performance when the safety car played such a big role in it. I think Racebug had a really solid race throughout, so he's a name I would also throw in there. Yeah, honestly, I still think Max, maybe. It's hard to tell. If that incident was his fault at the very end there, then I would take it away. I would rescind that vote, but I didn't see it properly. I don't know whether he was to blame or Racebug or who. So
I'm taking a look at the driver of the day results. I feel like it's somewhat of a meme vote right now, which I approve of. Chelach currently winning with 8 votes, Pessam on 4, and then you've got Calspa and Iceman on 2. Keep those votes there coming on in, but Jacob, that I think has been the best Premier X race of the season so far.
yeah, for sure. That was a cracker, a real cracker at the end there, especially. And I think this is the sort of thing that tends to happen in Monza. I mean, there's one race, I can't remember what year it is. It might be 1961. There's a famous race where 4 of them are like really close together across the line. The win is so close. It wasn't that for the win. In the end, Vallu was just too strong for the competition. But we did see it for the points further down. And you know what? There was a lot of battling throughout the race as well. It wasn't just after the safety car. We had the virtual safety car towards the beginning. And there was no point where there was nothing to look at in that race.
Yeah. But I think on that note, we're going to be heading into a short break. And when we come back, we will be back with our driver interviews of our top 3, which was Dougie, Calcifer, and Vallu. So stay tuned. We'll be right back in a few minutes' time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the post-race interviews. As you can see, I'm leaning back. I'm trying to relax because that was an absolutely crazy race. And joining us for interviews, we have our race winner, Vallu. We have our P2 man, Calcifer Iceman, and Dougie Falcons, who finished P4. Vallu, we'll start off with you. Throughout qualifying, it kind of seemed like the times were a little bit slower than what we were expecting. But in the end, you managed to come through. You pulled out, I think, a 17-7, an absolutely blistering lap. Calcifer with a 5-place grid penalty. The race just seemed yours for the taking.
Yeah, when I saw Calcifer had the grid penalty in Q1, I knew I can just pull away at the start and it's pretty much over, but there's always safety cars and that. So I was still managing and driving like it's normal race.
When that safety car did come out, I think you were something stupid, like 15 seconds up the road. Did you worry for a bit that maybe under the safety car restart, Iceman or Dougie might be able to get ahead of you?
No, I was confident in my restart. I failed it a bit because the safety car was slower than I thought, but I knew if I just spam my ears on the straight, I can keep my lead and then just pull away.
Well, you managed to take the win heading into Singapore next. Do you think you can keep Calcifer at bay once again now that you have 4 wins in a row?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident about my Singapore pace.
Okay. Well, congrats, Vallu, on your 4th consecutive win. Moving on to you, Calcifer. P2, disaster kind of struck for you in qualifying. We heard something in the Twitch chat about your wheel disconnecting mid-lap.
Yeah, on my Q3 lap, I had disconnect on my wheel at the braking zone, so I overshoot the corner. And yeah, until the race start or turn 1, the race was so disaster, or the whole thing for me, because yeah, 5-place grid penalty at the start, and then ruining my quali lap on Q2 and Q3.
With that race start, because you did start right in the middle of the field, I'm assuming you got some front wing damage. What happened and where did you pick up the damage?
There was Torpedo coming into the turn 1 who absolutely forgot to brake. So he went straight into me and I had red wing. So I had to beat.
And then obviously with yourself dropping far down the order, when that safety car came out and you fed out behind Iceman and Dougie, did you think that you might be able to get within 3 seconds of Vallu before the safety car came in? What was going through your head in terms of strategy?
Yeah, I knew that if I would get past Togi or Iceman at the safety car restart, then I have a chance, but I didn't. So I had to try, but Togi didn't give me enough space on turn 1, so I hull spun turn 1 and didn't get the exit on turn 2 at the safety car restart.
And then talk us through what happened, that incident between you and Dougie when you did go for the move into both the Retafili chicane and the Roger chicane.
Yeah, first of all, I didn't think that I would go for the move because he was very slow on the straight at the end of the straight. So I decided to go for the move. My braking was all right. I didn't overshoot the corner, but he turned in too early for me, and I didn't manage to avoid that. For the turn 2, I gave him space enough, and at the exit, I think he didn't realize that he didn't give me enough space, and I had to touch his car. So, and then on the straight, he was squeezing me a lot, and I was going ahead, but then our tires touched, and he gained momentum again. And on the second chicane, I think he overshoot his braking zone and touched my rear while trying to dive on me.
Well, Calcifer, congrats on P2, a good P2 and a fantastic recovery drive from yourself.
Thanks.
Iceman, going to you, Mr. Crashman. You didn't have a grid penalty this time. You couldn't really misbehave at Hungarian Corner Cut, But you started high up the order, and as you mentioned before we came live, just able to use the DRS to stick with Dougie and hold on to that P3 for such a long time.
Yeah, it was really tempting not to cut those corners in qualifying because it's Monza and you can gain like 30 seconds in an out lap. But yeah, qualifying didn't go to plan. I was basically thrown into the last minutes of qualifying in both Q2 and Q3, and I had to do a lap basically to in Q2 to continue to Q3, and in Q3 I think I was P9, and if I didn't do that lap, I would start P9. So yeah, it was crucial for me, and it didn't go to plan because I messed up on my Q3 lap. I messed up the chicane at the end of sector 1. So yeah, that lap was basically ruined. But I still came out half decent lap, and I managed to start P4, I think. So it was all good. And in the race, it was basically DRS chain. I had to keep with Dougie the whole race if I wanted a decent result because I had no practice. And I was pretty much like half a second off his pace. But yeah, as I said previously before we started the interviews, the DRS was a lifesaver. And it gave me the opportunity to get P2 even in the race. So yeah, that saved me.
Well, a good P3 for you will cement your position, 4th place in the championship. You close into Dougie a little bit. Do you think you can jump ahead of him next week in Singapore?
Oh yeah, I'm getting a new load cell for my pedal for next week. It will probably arrive either by then or in 2 weeks, so I'm very excited to see what I can do. But the goal stays the same. I think P3 is very much achievable in the championship, and I'll be working hard to get that.
Okay, well, Iceman, congrats again on your P3 in the race, and we look forward to seeing your new load cell in action.
Yeah, thanks.
Right, Dougie, going to you. First off, I might as well ask about the incident with Calcifer. Again, talk us through it from your perspective from turn 1 all the way through into the Roger chicane, and then what happened after as well between yourself, Max, and Racebug.
Well, what happened? It was like 2 laps ago. So yeah, I didn't expect Kelsford to get a good run, but he was like a car length and a half back. Went for the move anyway, I guess in desperation because he was trying to get into P2. I did give him the space, but he overshot the corner and then hit my car. And then I had a compromised run, so I bounced on the curb and then I hit Kelsford on the outside, which didn't give him space. And then I couldn't get off him because obviously our cars were just touching wheels every single time. So every single time we were going away, he was hitting it. I was keeping hitting it. And he got a better run because obviously it was a straight line speed. He had a good run somehow. And then we were banging wheels towards mid corner of the Copa Grande. Coming up to the second chicane, he was ahead. But he braked a little bit early. I tried to go for a move, but I was more narrow onto the inside, so I was hoping he would. So I did give him the space going to the inside, but he just cut across me and I half spun. So he probably assumed I was just clearly ahead, but he was clearly ahead. So but I wasn't because I was still about there, and then he just turned into me and I half spun, and then all hell broke loose because I didn't know how far back the others were. I didn't see who hit me. I just felt like it could have been anyone that hit me at that point, and then I was just clinging on for dear life, trying to not get spun around or something. So yeah, it was undeserved, but what can you do? It's just racing at the end of the day.
I mean, with yourself kind of sandwiched between Calcifer and Iceman in the championship, what's your focus? Is it to try to get back ahead of Calcifer, close them up, or is it to keep Iceman at bay?
I don't know. Really, it could go anywhere. Calcifer, like I said, he's very fast. And Iceman is getting is catching up quite quickly. So it depends how it goes for the next 5 odd races, and see what happens. But at the moment, it's just seeing how the pace is for the next few races, how it goes. The rest of the season doesn't favor me. I don't really like the next few trucks, but All you have to do is just try and be consistent. It's the only thing I could do really. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
Well, thank you, Dougie, for giving your point of view for the incident, and best of luck in the rest of the championship.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Jacob, I'll throw it to you if you have any questions for our top 4.
No, I think that's pretty much covered everything. I guess one quick question to Iceman: how many tenths is a new load cell worth?
Not sure, to be honest.
Mhm.
I'm hoping it's like 3 or 4 tenths. So yeah, I'll be praying every night for it to be that much, because I really want to start winning races. I know I have the potential, and yeah, just very excited to see what the next few races bring.
All right. Well, if it is 3-4 tenths, I'll be very, very excited as well. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have any further questions. So.
Right. Well, thank you to all of our top 4 for joining us for these interviews. Ladies and gents, that is all that we have time for tonight. Formula X Racing will be back next week from the Marina Bay circuit in Singapore. Division 2 will be racing on Wednesday, Division 1 on Thursday, and of course, the main show, Premier X, will be on Friday evening. If you haven't done so already, do make sure to follow, maybe subscribe on Twitch, and you can stay up to date with all the Formula X Racing content on YouTube and Twitter, Formula X Racing. Make sure to get involved. But for myself and Jacob, that is everything that we have time for. Reed says hi as well. I'll wait for him. That's what Reed looks like right now, waving. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. And until next time, guys, stay fast and good night.